I'm the senior advisor. I'm Richard Swanson. I'm the senior advisor for the West region. It's everything from San Diego to Seattle with the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service, U.S. field operations. I'm also currently our acting director here in Orange County. But more importantly, I'll be your moderator today. And if you want to put some chat questions, I'll be sure to make sure we get those addressed. Got a great team starting out with Dr. Keith Clement, who is with me right now. How to use AI to your export advantage, which is great. AI is probably the buzzword of all time, right, these days. And then we'll have Mark Matsumoto, how to globalize your website for export audience. Mark is a longtime client and recipient of our Market Developer Cooperator Program, which is a grant program to help companies access foreign markets. E-commerce is probably the fastest growing platform that I've worked with over the last 10 years, and it's exciting to have him. In addition, I've got my colleague of many years, James Bledsoe. He is the director of our e-commerce innovation lab. He's based up in Seattle. Mark Matsumoto, by the way, is based here in Southern California, as with all of our colleagues. I'd be remiss in not thanking Simona Rasic, who is the advisor here of the program with Maurice Kogan and supporting the LA Chamber's hosting of the event. And you know, a little bit about us, you know, I'd also like to acknowledge the state of California, the Office of Economic Development, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, Deputy Senior Director Emily Desai and her team. They do an awesome job. This export training program and the funding wouldn't be possible without them. It's a great state, federal, local chamber collaboration, and I'm glad everyone has a chance to tap into RETAP. So a little bit about us, just quickly. The U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service is sort of a triad strategy with our headquarters, industry, advocacy, regional teams, focusing in on industry and regions of the world that are dynamically charged with export potential for you. We also focus on foreign direct investment, which is a good thing for the United States if it's good and it helps build the economy. Our U.S. network are driven by trade specialists like myself. We're all industry focused. We belong to industry affinity groups. And so we have targeted expertise for a lot of different products. For example, here in Los Angeles, hi there. Here in Los Angeles, I cover the food and beverage sector. I've got my colleagues here in Los Angeles who cover other sectors. If you ever want to find one of us, the best way to do it using, using a search engine would be Google. So just Google trade.gov, whatever industry, whatever city, and it'll help you navigate our website, trade.gov, which will have all the resources you need from us. Let's move forward. I think in addition to all of our speakers today, at any given time, you can tap into the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service here and utilize our assistance programs. We have a number of those. So if you just Google trade.gov services, you'll go to the whole array of our services that we use. We have matchmaking services, we have event-driven services, we have showcase services, partner searches, background checks, and we work in tandem with our commercial colleagues in our U.S. embassies and colleagues overseas. We work with the commercial section. Those are staffed and operated by the U.S. Department of Commerce. And that's a great connection to that foreign market. And I strongly suggest that you guys connect with one of us locally here, domestically, and then we'll connect you overseas and get you on your way. So without any further ado, I think, Maurice, we're going to move forward if we can. And we are going to introduce Mr. Keith Clement. And Keith, you want to say hello to everybody? Just to kick it off.
Hello.
And your session, how to use AI and export advantage. This is fascinating. A lot of folks have AI, trying it out the last few years. There's a lot of AI, opportunities out there to utilize in terms of search engine optimization and getting the information and the solutions you need. But I think it's knowing how to use AI is probably the most quintessential aspect of going forward doing international. So Keith, why don't you give us, I'll pull back. Why don't you give us a little quick introduction of yourself, your background, and then why don't you get into how to use AI to export advantage?
Rich, it's a deal. And thank you very much, everybody, for joining us at RETAP this morning. This is a vital way of providing training and information to those that are seeking to engage in export and related international business opportunities. My name is Dr. Keith Clement, and I am a professor of criminology at California State University, Fresno. And by day, I'm a professor, and by night and weekends and holidays and all other events, I have the honor and privilege of chairing the California Cybersecurity Task Force Workforce Development and Education Subcommittee. And we are very interested in security matters and artificial intelligence matters. Rich, you really hit the nail on the head that this is the future of things. But before I get started, I want everybody here to put aside any preconceived notions or in support of or not in favor of AI and the impact that it is making. It is important that we acknowledge upfront that AI is both a transformative and a potential disruptor of economics, of business, of human individual lives and activities. But irregardless of where we stand on a particular issue like AI and its effective, equitable use in a society, modern society such as today, we should put aside our different views and our attitudes towards this while we are in the process of figuring out how AI can best be utilized. I would definitely acknowledge that there's privacy issues, there's intellectual property issues, there's accuracy issues. A recent study suggested that 60% of AI queries relating to news, current events and news, were incorrect or in error. So there are some things that we need to figure out in the AI world. But that being said, your competitors are thinking of and or investing in and perhaps supporting the utilization of AI on the job. Many employers actually believe that AI is going to increase employee productivity by a factor of 3. So 1 hour of human work will be the equivalent of 3 hours of AI assisted work. So I guess it's conceivable that our 40-hour work week after AI could be viewed as a 120-hour work week, with 80 hours being the machine and 40 hours, being you. I also want to note that whether we have positive or negative attitudes towards AI has absolutely no bearing on this fast moving train that is really picking up speed in 2025. I think that if you are a hiring authority or a market forecaster or some other contract legal compliance type 2 years ago or 3 years ago, you might not have seen where AI is taking us, but AI is taking us somewhere really quick. I was an undergraduate student in 1993, not to date myself, I apologize. And I recall in the computer lab talking to other students about this newfangled thing called the internet. And a couple of folks thought that the internet and Yahoo and all that kind of stuff was never going to pan out. It was never going to go anywhere. And look where we are today. The internet is huge. I really believe that AI links up with that level, okay? Really links up with that level of deep transformative change that we are watching all across the world in ways that were previously unconceived. So to get us started, I really wanted to drive down to some of these key AI concepts and terms. So if these are super basic for you, my apologies. I really want to make sure that we're all starting from the, we're all in the same field with the same commonly understood knowledge and terms. So the first is artificial intelligence enables computers and machines to simulate human learning, comprehension, problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. So while generative AI is, just a mere 24, 36 months old, at least in the consumer varieties of it, AI has been around, at least in theory, since the post World War II era. And the idea was to have machines that thought like humans without a lot of the foilables of people, personality wise, or maybe a poor memory, or all these kinds of things that really plague human thinking. Um, a lot of us have been familiar for years with what we would call narrow AI, which is your Alexis or your Siri, and it doesn't really think for itself. It reacts to verbal comments or queries, commands, whatever you prefer to call them, and its ability outside of basic recall or ability to turn on a light is, fairly limited. It is a very narrow AI, as compared to what we would call soft AI. Soft AI has been around in a business sense for quite a while, often called like decision making science or data analytics, right? So these are terms that have been around for a bit of a while. Soft AI finds, so it goes out and crawls the internet and finds answers to specific queries. It is able to analyze, and by analyze, both explanation, right? Explain past behavior, as well as predictive, right? Based on past trends, we can see these things moving forward into the future. I want to emphasize when talking about either soft AI or hard AI, that we'll talk about in a second, is the true role and value of AI intended to be a co-pilot. Okay. So if you are using AI and it's just off doing its own thing and you are not checking its output and its feedback for accuracy and those kinds of things, oh yeah, that's a big mistake right there. I'm sure that we've all seen meeting minutes that were prepared through AI summaries and the issues that were raised. And I've seen some pretty crazy unedited feedback coming through where obviously somebody just saw the output, hit save as, and then used it without looking at it first, and then realizing that it caught all sorts of mistakes. Now, hard AI is similar to soft AI in the sense that decision making is being actually made. That's the value add of hard AI. So it's not just learning, and it is not just keeping up with its duties and tasks as requested, but it also is able to factor in impact, future possibilities in a decision where the decision making capabilities in terms of executive function definitely increase over time. And eventually, a well trained hard AI model is in a position to actually make decisions. So, like for example, maybe forms are submitted, right? And fillable forms with all the information that's provided there, perhaps maybe in an HR or a personnel situation, right? Where the AI is able to sort through all the files or folders, looking for specific pieces of information, right? Maybe it's looking for years of experience or any of these other bachelor's degree required or whatnot. and going about and actually making decisions. Apply application denied, application approved, and then, for example, it could just go into the printer spool and it generates an auto, thank you for your application. We regret to inform you, that kind of email, all the way to, hey, congratulations, you just did this, right? I mean, these are what we mean by hard decisions. I think that a lot of the health and medical care denial decisions seem to be coming out of the AI world. I think it's probably puts a negative perception of some with AI because it's being used to make actual decisions, whether they're public policy decisions or private sector business decisions, right? I mean, business makes decisions every day. A generative AI is the one that we're really familiar with. It's been around for a while. Open AI and Gemini, and there's all these models, Medusa, running around out there that can create new content. And I mean, new content can either be in the form of words, like writing emails and such, all the way to digital stuff like touching up graphics, creating art, if you will, right? Creating pictures and digital images, versus what is getting a lot more attention today in 2025, the idea of agentic AI, where AI can actually, act independent of traditional human supervision. Not to say that humans don't supervise these AI models, but it's not continuous. It's continuous, but it doesn't really get involved in most day-to-day AI types of decisions. We trust it to do the right thing. And for those that are trusting, then there you go. For those that are not very trusting, AI is something that you would definitely want to review. But it learns, it reasons, and it adapts. And so the learning possibility, this is where we get into the training of the module, right? We teach it what we want it to know. I was using an example earlier today of, maybe you wanted to do Shakespeare. You wanted to do some research related to Shakespeare, maybe some marketing campaign or something along those lines. And you could have your AI model trained on all 44 first folio Shakespeare works, books, right? Novel sized, 75,000 words. You could train it on the model. You could have your model think as if it was the author, Bill Shakespeare, and adapt it to modern times. So, I mean, we've all seen adaptations of Hamlet or something that has been adapted over time, but agentic AI could actually put people in those roles and create new works on the basis of these models, right? I mean, this is what we mean by adapt to the environment. And AI is a key factor in driving automation. We'll talk about automation in a bit because automation is clearly one of the key examples of ways that AI can assist in the export enterprise and what we're trying to do. Next slide, please. All right. So we hear a lot about AI, but AI is nothing more than the data that it is built upon. Okay. So data is critical. Data is the lifeblood of this, and data defined is just raw information. Nothing fancy there. It can be in words, numbers, images. I mean, the form of the data is vast, and we break data down into two categories. There's traditional stuff, and if you wanted an example of traditional data, it's probably found in an Excel spreadsheet that you or your firm are using, right? So you have all these columns of discrete information, and it's super good at keeping track of email addresses, phone numbers, right? Because it's sorted into rows and columns that is easy to analyze from traditional data methods, right? Please provide me a list of all phone numbers in Excel spreadsheet 205, right? And it can do it just like that, right? It often called CSV or comma separated variable format, and that's what we're all familiar with. I know that we all have been using Excel and spreadsheets for forever. Big data, however, big data is, I think, both a literal and a figurative term. Okay, so there's the traditional ways that we can analyze data, and or we can use AI to actually parse through our data. So big data defined extremely large and complex data sets. You know, the human eye can only process so many data points within our level of understanding. And when you have a spreadsheet that has millions and millions of lines, thousands of variables, continuous over time, updated in real time, the traditional of ways of analyzing that data are not very helpful, right? A tired pair of human eyes can only analyze so much data and evaluate it. And if we are using data sets that are structured, like your database, maybe your financial transactions, sales records, address books, um, that's one area that big data can assist. Like, for example, discovering relationships between people that might be on your mailing list. You know, I would like to know about corporate alliances and partnerships moving forward. Are there any ties or links between this long list of potential customers or whatnot? These are examples of that. Structured data is common. You are commonly exposed to it. It is a bit easier to analyze in a traditional sense, but we really are trying to get to the next level in all of this. Things like unstructured data. So unstructured data uses words and numbers, and they can be found in many different formats. So structured is, your address book. Unstructured is the craziness that can occur on any of our social media accounts, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or et cetera. And are there a variety of big data and AI tools that are utilized to analyze, evaluate, and do things with unstructured data like social media posts? Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. Mixed data sets include both structured and unstructured data. And that's where we go into this term large language models, where we're feeding all this information into our model and then doing something with it. I used the example of Shakespeare before. So maybe a mixed data set could be Shakespeare's 44 works and maybe an image or a picture of all of Shakespeare's characters on the basis of the descriptions that were found in those 44 words. And then, of course, people would go through it and parse it to make sure that it looked like it's supposed to. For those that are interested in this data and information, you are free to go to oracle.com where this is found. And I found that today. So just so you know. Next slide, please. All right. General comments about AI and data. How good is your organization at keeping records? I would assume in the export and international business areas, you are very good at keeping track of data. It is very important to you. We tend to treat our data well. The relation between AI and data is that if your data sucks, your outputs will suck as well. And typically, for example, what we mean is like timeliness. So like on a university campus, we could use AI to determine the number of people in a classroom. You could use AI to determine the amount of trade going between the US and any of our international partners. And if the data is not kept up and not up to date, bad decisions could be made. I mean, AI is just doing what you tell it. And if the instructions that you give it are poor or non-optimal, then the output that you are getting back is only as good as the data that you put in. Want to also briefly emphasize the idea of the need to carefully review AI for accuracy, sources, and links, especially when you are talking about things like legal compliance or audit or some of these other kinds of areas. I mean, one of the challenges, of course, in international business is that you are dealing with laws, codes, and regulations from many different areas. And, thus you need to be an expert in many different areas. And actually, AI, if properly trained, could do that work on your behalf, that would be an example of an optimal use of AI. And export is a more comprehensive understanding of local regulations and laws that pertain to whatever your business in export happens to be. I want to bring up the word confabulation. It is an error in artificial intelligence where the description sounds really logical and makes sense. And okay, I see that. But it's also nonsensical and meaningless. And it's just ideas and thoughts put together. In all fairness, you know, maybe this is a trick on my part, is that I just made up this word called confabulation and just put all this nonsense behind it. And so it was, okay, that's what confabulation is. Maybe that's confabulated, right? How would you know? It goes back to the sources where the information is coming from. And one of the areas of confabulation is characterized by broken or missing links, right? So you can't follow the source that you're looking for. I mean, it tells you something really important to your company, and then you go look for more detail, and the link is dead or doesn't go anywhere. Like I mentioned before, about 60% of queries about news inaccurate according to what AI does. Some models are better than others. Many other areas of queries, AI performs much better. The point of this article is that on news and current events, wide level of inaccuracy, that could easily be the idea that there are multiple filters that people use for their news, red or blue, right? Red or blue, thinking towards, how a story appeals to either group in a variety of meaningful ways. And like I said before, about a quarter of all search engine searches today in 2025 are actually AI driven searches. So we are beginning to see the maybe the end of the Google search feature, at least as far as a traditional search engine, as more and more people shift to AI. And the second to final bullet point, your competitors, whether they're strategic, business, or government, are more likely using, right, utilizing for day-to-day operations, investing, that is putting money and personnel and resources into this, as well as innovating. Apologize for that. Innovating in AI, and that is developing tools, models, and training that really reflect their business model. What are they trying to accomplish? What's your firm's strategic objectives? How can we better, meet these objectives and goals? These kinds of things. So the question is, how do you use AI to export advantage? And few years ago, I saw that something like 10% of the Fortune 500 companies were utilizing AI or researching how to use AI. And that was, like 5 years ago or so. And today, the number is like over 50%. And of the remaining 50% that have not jumped into AI yet, they are doing the initial look into kinds of a process, right? The details in all of that. So next slide, please. All right. So how to use AI to export advantage. AI is an excellent research assistant. As a faculty member, right, I'm a professor at criminology. I love using AI as a research assistant. And you should be using AI as a research assistant too. Thankfully, of course, it doesn't call in sick, right? And it doesn't take long lunches or any of that kind of stuff. The first way that we can assist in our task to support export advantage is through what we would just regular market analysis, right? So now you have a research entity that is able to look at vast amounts of data that, again, tired eyes are having a challenge to take a look at and analyze. I would like to see the average price of cotton or steel or any other commodity that you can think of. And I want that on a worldwide basis. And I'd like it over the last 5 years. And, you know, if you send somebody to do that task, they're going to be busy for a while. And instead, using AI, you could actually expedite that task tremendously. And let's be honest, the better market analysis that you have, the better market prediction that you have, the better you are able to target with our finite marketing materials and funding, um, making sure that the right communities are being served by the right products at the right time, and market analysis does that. AI is also useful at forecasting, right? I mean, not understanding what the market has been doing or what the price point has been doing, but we can use those trends to influence predictive or forecasting. So explaining past activity is useful in its own way, but predictive power is even more efficient and effective. We could also talk about stuff like optimization, supply chain optimization, logistics, right? You have a major transportation network that you must keep an eye on, and maybe you're in a flour or a perishable industry where seafood, where time is of the essence, and that you are better able to predict where the need is going to be, where the supply bottlenecks may be, and put your human or your AI decision makers to work for this kind of stuff. I think supply chain also involves inventory. So maybe you rely on many different vendors in order to develop or build in the advanced manufacturing sense, perhaps. You are able to use AI to assist you in your inventory, to be making sure that when this widget supply is less than 30 days, time to put in that new PO, that new purchase order for your next batch, all that kind of stuff. Customization and localization. One area that AI has really been useful in is for language and for people that travel a lot. Okay, that some of the new smartphones that are out there really have a strong translation ability or function to them. So that's an example of a barrier to international business and export that could be mitigated through the utilization of customization and localization. If a lot of your business occurs in one country or the other, and you don't want to send your staff to language schools across the world, you can utilize AI types of technologies, voice translation, all of these kinds of things. AI is very useful to study the customs and cultures of other areas and provide a report, a executive or high level report to your people, and before they travel, they could have a very nice travel briefing set up of the key things that they would need to know, key words that they need to know. I mean, it's so embarrassing to travel somewhere and not know that nation's capital or who their political leader is and all of that kind of stuff. Easy to prepare dossiers for travel on these kinds of things. I think that customer insights has kind of a two-edged sword. I think that knowing more about your customer is fantastic. But on the other side, I do believe that customers are also getting a little bit more skeptical about how their information is being used, how their customer profiles and patterns are being used. So on the one hand, it's really nice to know the subtleties and the nuances of your customers. On the other hand, I do believe that customer insights does rise to some privacy issues, um, but it could assist you as an exporter to increase your reputation and to increase your customer satisfaction, right? I mean, if you are getting a bunch of comments from your customers that this process or that product has this issue, businesses are well suited to address the concerns and issues relating to their customer base. They might just find another provider, and then you're going to be out of business. As a professor of criminology, I am a big fan of the regulatory compliance aspect of things in general. And in international business and export, there are many different international, national, regional, local kinds of concerns that must be found. And if we are doing business in these markets, it is our imperative and our due diligence to have competitive and current types of information on how business is done in these areas, whether it be through law or regulation or other. And AI tools can be used for compliance checks. And I think that that's a perfect example of helping us ensure compliance to local, national, international, whatever laws. Obviously, I have spoken about, like, on 9 different occasions, the value of overseeing human oversight over the output of AI. I would really, really recommend that in this capacity as well. I could just imagine if you are in front of a regulatory body or a enforcement type of an agency trying to explain how your AI said this about another nation's or another localities, international export control laws, and explaining away what happened, what went wrong there. The lawyers really don't care much for I blame it on the AI, right? The buck stops with the individual. I like the idea of virtual trade shows, right? I mean, sometimes we are in a more marketing and a more promotional phase of the process, and you could actually save your company or firm an awful lot of money by holding a virtual trade show, then arrange a travel junket with 30 personnel from your office and 12 other countries that are all involved. And so there's a variety of activities that we are able to conduct virtually, and we could use AI to actually facilitate those trade programs. Not suggesting that our fantastic moderator Rich today would be replaced by an AI, but rather the platforms and all of the marketing and advertising of an event, and right, sending the thank you very much for speaking email after, right, all those things could be coordinated through AI and free up human hours, human time for an additional activity. So those are how we can use AI to export advantage. Next slide, please. I really don't want to get into AI automation in a lot of different ways. This is some pretty complicated stuff, obviously. The first 3 relate more to the manufacturing of aspects of things. So, maybe your firm has a production line, right? You're making stuff and advanced manufacturing. Maybe you are doing export of health and medical kinds of devices, that kind of stuff. Fixed automation is really helpful for high volume production of very simple-ish, I don't know if that's exactly the word I'm looking, but for specific kinds of tasks. It's screwing on it takes the toothpaste caps and puts them on, right? I mean, that's the only thing it does, is it screws on a little cap to your toothpaste. It could be more detailed as well. I think that car production, right, very robot heavy kind of automation. There's programmable stuff, and programmables when we have different kinds of tasks, right? So we have scheduling and organizing. We have the actual sales calls, travel trips, etc., and then what happens after the meeting as well. I think that for our purposes today, number 4 and number 5 are what's most of value to us. The first is that you are able to streamline your operations, your internal and external operations as an exporter through process automation. It is very useful for workflow and for repetitive tasks. Like, for example, maybe you have an email listserv of 10,000 people and you use process automation to get those emails out on letterhead on a timely basis, looking sharp, no grammatical errors. Process automation would be very useful. Um, I think that if you have a lot of financial processes, billing, invoicing, a lot of that kind of stuff, process automation is something that would work for you. That would be of value to your firm or your business, particularly in export and in other productions as well. And intelligent automation. So I'm a university professor, and one thing that universities are really loving to do these days is to have chatbots. So instead of you having a telemarketing center with a bunch of folks answering questions 24/7 with customer support, it is possible that you could utilize intelligence automation tools where they are actually going through a chatbot of that you design, right? Natural language models. You work out the tone. You provide it with all of your policy manuals, right? Maybe you wanted to do hiring through this. You would run your hiring manual that was public facing side, right? That you would put out there. Well, internal, you could use a private one, but you wouldn't want to share your internal, right? Documentation on a policy in an area as important as HR to, some chatbot. I mean, the public facing chatbot at least. Um, so the intention of this is that you enhance your customer support through having a very accommodating and friendly sounding type of automation, all of which is programmed and controlled, right? You can make it as austere and bureaucratic and officious sounding, is as friendly and as warm and as kind. And it really, you discuss with the AI, because this is an iterative process, so that you can train these. I used to think that many prompts were like a sentence or two. I've seen prompts that are just pages and pages long, and this would be the instructions as to how you would like your AI to handle incoming customer service types of requests, right? And that's exactly what you're trying to do. Next slide, please. These are a variety of examples of the way that automation can be used in the area of export. We've spoken about these, generally speaking, before. I don't need to get into an awful lot of detail about that now. But like example, order processing, the supply chain management, customs and compliance. Big fan of logistics and what it can do. It can make sure that you have the right stuff in the right places at the right time. Warehouse management for those that have a large warehouse operation and would like to know what's in the warehouse at any given time. And again, all of this is profoundly linked to how updated your information is. So if your warehouse doesn't update their inventory, but once a week or so, right, you can see exactly how unfortunate that kind of an inventory system is versus having a warehouse management system where data is in real time. And I just sold 3 items off of, I just sold 3 kits and they're out of my warehouse now, and then they're into the logistics pipeline. AI has a lot of impact on marketing and customer interaction, both with your vendor or your subcontractors in some regards, as well as a public-facing customer interaction for those that really rely on that. And of course, the utilization of language and filters through AI would allow for a lot of this marketing and customer interaction to be done in the customer's native language, and would prevent us from having to spend a lot of money on making the translations and doing the promotional materials in multiple languages. etc. The other way that we, of course, can use automation and export is through data analytics and the collection of, the review and analysis of, and then the evaluation of the quality of the data that you have. And if you found that your data was not very well organized and structured, you could actually use AI to assist you in the development of new data analytics and measures and metrics that might be more of value to your firm. And then, how does it better capture these data and information and reports that would be easily generatable and rely less on human error, human interaction on those things. Next slide, please. So I was going to say cutting to the chase, but that would have been like 38 minutes ago. But finally, what is the potential benefit? And there really are 4 benefits of AI in the area of export and international business and business in general. The first is the cost savings, and one could debate the amount of cost savings understood. I just want to posit the idea that as the cost of AI and technology in general is decreasing, the value long term for enterprise and government increases as a reduction of future operational expenses. So it does take some money to automate, right? It does take some resources to make this happen, but the cost savings is over time in a reduction of operational costs. And the more of a role you want AI to take in your firm or agency or wherever you are, the more you're going to be able to save money over time. Secondly, is efficiency via streamlined processes. Streamlined processes. So you're going to have some staff that we're going to design the form that you're talking about that needs to be filled out. I don't know if you're big fans of that show, The Office or Office Space, where they have these forms that are just critical of the business mission, right? Just you have some folks sit down, design the memos, design the format, the template that is going to be used, and then there's a streamlined process right there, right? Over time. I want to, for the 15th time, mention the value of keeping your data current and up to date. Third, scalability. So I know that you want to pump out and increase the number of exports. And once you have transferred to a big data way of analysis and utilizing AI, scalability is fantastic. Going from 100 customers to 1 million customers through big data, no problems there. And lastly, of course, the value of accuracy. Okay, accuracy. The idea is that we're reducing human error and we're overseeing AI. So we're not committing AI error, but we are reducing human error in documentation compliance. And we already spoke about the values of that. I have one final slide and maybe a minute left. So that's me right there. I'm a pretty easy fellow to get a hold of. My email is at the very bottom if you have any questions on any of these remarks. And I do believe that this PowerPoint will be provided as well as a resource recorded as well. So that's Rich. That's all I got for you.
Dr. Clement, awesome. And go Bulldogs, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm a 2-time graduate of the state system, Long Beach State and Cal State Fullerton. So Fresno is awesome. Way to go. We actually have an office in Fresno. Bernadette Rojas, Andy Cito are up there. We're co-located with the Small Business Administration. I'll be sure to connect you with them. But we'll get into, I think, Mark Matsumoto, how to globalize your website in a few minutes here. But we do have a little time to take a question or two. Drop it into the chat. I do want to acknowledge some partners out there and a company that I've worked with closely. We have Kathy Million on the line with UVDI. Hi, Kathy. great company to work with, great export stories, possible, she's just been great to work with and knows how to utilize all the services out there. So that's great. We also have Marlene Marroquin of the U.S. Mexico Chamber. We have done so much with them. They're based here in Los Angeles. They sort of represent the Southwest, and it's been, a great ally to have someone who we've worked with Mexico, our partner right here. We have so many connections. Same with
Thank you
Gopher.
so much, Richard, and everyone. It's a
Yep.
pleasure to be here, and I'm very excited to be working with all of you. And if I can be any of support to promote the next programs, happy to do it and happy to attend in-person meeting for the next time. I'm sorry I couldn't do it today, but I'll be happy to be there in person. Thank you,
Awesome.
Richard.
Well,
I'm honored to be here.
great, Marlene. I'm sure Maurice and Simona will hold you to that. There's a few more programs on the horizon. So any
Absolutely.
questions for,
Yeah.
good morning. Okay.
Richard, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it, Maurice.
When you look at documentation for export, whether it's a shipping document, a transaction document, or a filing document, they all have common fields, like the name of the company, the Incoterm used, the price, the shipping date. In the process of a negotiation between the buyer and the seller, as they change one of the conditions in one of these forms, is there something in AI that automatically updates that new piece of information in every common field of every other form?
If properly instructed, yes. That's this idea of updating is not only in relation to its timeliness and its accuracy there, but also, as you're suggesting, being prone to change. AI is much more adaptable than its human counterpart. I have to say, we become fixed in our habits, in our ways. But if you were to be making significant changes in the way that data was collected, reported, or to be analyzed, you would have to be very specific about the nature of those kinds of changes. And then AI would move as instructed. So, and you'd want to make sure that it looked okay a few times before you just put it out there, right? I mean, so Maurice, I think that one of the positive aspects of AI is the utilization of change and transformation. And I like to use the word adapt. The more sophisticated that the more sophisticated AI and models that you will be using, those would probably be able to detect some of the changes that you're talking about. But if you're using a less sophisticated model, then you would definitely want to make sure that you hand groomed the model and the queries and how things were to be used, the prompt, if you prefer.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and I've only used the public version of ChatGPT and Google Gemini, but there is this sense of training AI. And, so there's a lot of strategy in that training in order to adapt to some of the questions. What I also noticed too is that for a lot of the stuff we do, international market research and trying to solve, complex shipping issues and stuff like that, oftentimes the source documents are very recognizable. I like that. So when you look at your AI, also check out the source documents, because you'll oftentimes realize that, oh, wow, I know that document. Oh, okay. So they're utilizing this, this, and this. And that sort of gives it its credibility and its base of where you should start utilizing that AI information. Any sort of last tips, Keith? We're going to segue over to Mark Matsumoto here in a minute, but anything you want to just part us with?
Rich, I really hope that the front end of the presentation, the first few slides that were kind of general comments about AI and data, were very helpful and very useful in this confusing time of business and trade And I assume that things are going to continue to get trickier in the coming days. That would be an example of where AI may be able to assist sorting some of these things out. And I would really encourage folks to have an enterprise solution that is private to them and their firm, and not a public model, or not shared with people outside of your network, if you will. And train it well on your policies, procedures, and documents, contracts, forms, all of those kinds of things, and see how AI can assist you in better serving your customers. That's all I have. I hope that's helpful.
Awesome. And you're sort of a continued resource for us. You're part of the RETAP team. I know Maurice is in contact with you. So is Simona. Stay on as long as you want, Keith, but I know you've got class, you're in session. And I know you got stuff to go, but I'm gonna greatly thank you so much for being a part of us. Great content. Everybody will have access to this, I believe, Maurice. And we'll switch over to Mr. Matsumoto. Matsumoto-san, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. But and Dr. Keith, very interesting. I got a little bit of your presentation. Just FYI, a good friend of mine is the director of international students at Cal State Fresno, came in last year, Eddie West. And I'm a native son of Bakersfield, so know the region well. But very interested. I offline will tell you about an event that we're doing promoting the export of service industries, and cyber security, AI are big topics, and control and ability to export those are big issues. But Richard, I think you have sort of discombobulated this, because I was asked, because James Bledsoe talks about website globalization and sort of the
we did a little switcheroo.
First stage. So I'm jumping ahead, talking about cross-border e-commerce and
that's okay,
exporting online. But do you have my slides in there, or am I allowed to
I think we'll have to
somebody's from Bakersfield
forward.
I see in the chat.
Sandra, if Sandra can fast forward and get to, I think we got your slides up there, Mark.
Okay.
We have how to globalize your website for an export audience. I think Simona was quick to the.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah,
are
she's
you
got
doing
you.
that? Since you're the moderator, are you moving those?
No, Sandra's helping me. But let me just give everybody a little bit of an intro. Mark, you and I have gone back 30 years. You are the quintessential exporter. You started out with food waste disposers to Japan. Incredible success there. You've moved into the education, the e-commerce platforms. We've worked together with you through our Market Developer Cooperator program for a number of years. You've been a client of ours, and just a firsthand exporter. You've also been the chair of our district export council back in the day when we shepherded in our export controls seminar strategy. And so for so many years, you've been with us. So this is an exciting, we just had a program the other week. You've got something coming up, a services summit too, June 17th. Would love to let everybody know. Services are the fastest growing export component, I think, in the ecosystem these days. And, it's an exciting field to be able to sell and generate revenue and bring it back to your business utilizing services you provide. And so Mark has got a good insight on that. And also on the payment side, Mark, I know you're going to tap into that, but we've been really big on the ability for, digital payment, connected to e-commerce, cross-border, online sales. Mark's going to get into that too as well. So again, thanks, Mark. Without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you and Sandra. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Rich. That was very generous. I also want to thank Maurice and Simona. Simona, it was nice to see you at the event we had last week. Richard alluded to a couple recent events. There's really never been a better time for SMEs to look at the global market, leveraging online selling. Now, that being said, it's certainly not without challenges, and it seems to be changing as we speak. But I know, again, as I said, this is a bit disjointed because James Bledsoe was supposed to come in first to talk about globalizing your website, taking your existing IT infrastructure and positioning itself better. Many of you that are already exporting or have a established business here are getting inquiries. You're doing maybe some business because of your website presence, whether it's on Shopify or Amazon, and that's great. But I think I want to share with you kind of where the possibilities are of selling online. Next slide. So a little bit about CBEC Asia. It really means cross-border e-commerce Asia. And this project was an idea that was formed really in 2017. I went to Thailand, and I'm going to talk a little bit later. I was blown away in 2017, if you can believe that, 8 years ago. I watched a Facebook Live in Thailand, and the payment model was bank transfers. And I watched a dingy little room with very bad lighting on my phone. I watched this Facebook Live, and more than 500 pairs of women dress shoes were sold. And it told me there's a whole world of e-commerce we didn't even know about back then. It started this genesis of how could we get more exporters to sell, bypassing traditional business models and selling online. That led to this CBEC Asia model, which was funded as part of the Market Development Cooperator Program, which has been a great program. It's a public-private partnership between the Department of Commerce and private organizations. The grantee for this project has been at Cal State San Bernardino. CBEC Asia now is sort of in its extended phase, so it's no longer really an active cooperator, but there's still some legacy events we do. So that's how my base of knowledge worked. I designed this concept with a colleague that used to run the state trade program. And we've had some success in China and in Asia, Southeast Asia, which I'll talk about. Next slide. But the real reason why we took a deep dive on this is we saw how fast e-commerce was growing outside of the United States. Now, we know the saturation in the United States is 95% of Americans have bought something online, but the world's biggest market for e-commerce is actually not in the United States. 50% of the world's market is in China for e-tail. And that's pretty remarkable. But what I shared at the Natural Product Show a couple weeks ago is what we're watching, and this was indicative of who came to this event at the Natural Product Show. So for those of you that don't know what Expo West or the Natural Product Show is, it's one of the 10 big trade shows in the United States. It happens to be held in Anaheim every year. Well, there was a whole export series for the attendees, and Richard and his team moderated that and managed that. And Richard will verify this. We had about 100 people, nearly 100 people at the presentation that I did. But what was really remarkable is about 2/3 of those attendees were from overseas, many from Asia, but many were very interested, not in China, but what's happening in ASEAN markets in Southeast Asia. So what is happening is while China is this dominant market for e-commerce, this is moving very quickly into new markets like ASEAN and into the Middle East and into Latin America. So the growth is exploding, and platforms that have been very important marketplaces are also moving their marketplaces into those regions. And you can see by this graph where growth is going. Next slide, please. And I shared the slide at the bottom. I've been using this quite a while, so it's a little bit long in the tooth. But when we first started this CBEC Asia project, we could see in 21, United States is the mature market. China's grown real fast. It's reaching maturity, as is Singapore. India is a bit of an outlier. Although there's a lot of e-commerce platforms, traditional cross-border e-commerce has been very limited by regulatory challenges. But then you see in this really pre-growth stage that it's all these major markets in Southeast Asia. Well, I'm here to tell you now that Vietnam and Thailand have kind of moved into that growth phase, and that's where we're seeing fast growth. And if we were to add Latin America, and the Middle East. They would also be from pre-growth into fast-growing markets. So you get the idea. And what's exciting is we are nowhere near topping out on the growth phases. You look at the upper slide, you see that the growth will probably double between 2025 and 2030. So although there's a lot of these existing brands and competition, the growth will continue. But that being said, what I will share is it may not be through traditional marketplaces. So next slide, please. Thank you. Well, why am I talking about cross-border e-commerce? And to take it back a little bit, what your RETAP program is very helpful for those of you that are somewhat new to export or want to grow in export, is we've always looked at the Department of Commerce and established trade resources to help you find offline distributors. Richard alluded to my start was selling a very basic item everybody has in their household, the kitchen disposer. Well, the key to that was having an offline distributor. And what that meant is it would be a buyer. My biggest market was Japan, that would actually import the product and then manage a network of sub-distributors or wholesalers. Just a factoid for you, not that it may be of interest, but the price of the kitchen disposer when I was selling it very well in the 90s in Japan was equivalent to $1,500 US. And the reason was there were so many levels of distribution. You could have 5, 6, 7 steps. Well, the good news in Japan and North Asia and many of the international markets in the last 20 years, distribution is flattened. But also what that means is it's harder to get in with a traditional offline distributor. As there are fewer, it's harder to find that distributor that wants to sell your brand. So finding a traditional distributor was the way we exported. What e-commerce and cross-border e-commerce is doing is allowing us to find a different way to sell. In other words, bypassing that traditional stocking distributor and either selling direct to the consumer by our inventory and warehouse in the United States or in a bonded warehouse, think of it as a foreign trade zone in China or Korea or Japan or potentially in Southeast Asia and now in other markets around the world. So this has become a whole new way to do business. And I will get to this in the next couple slides. Why this is really attractive is you can bypass some of the really tricky requirements to establish your product offline in most markets. Next slide, please. Well, this gives you one reason why cross-border e-commerce is so attractive. The tax and the duty for many products, as an example, wine and beverage, alcoholic beverage are in high demand in many markets in Asia, but the duties that you face when you get to customs and want to import it could be 50%, could be 80%, could even be higher. Cross-border e-commerce has allowed many categories, including wine, to be imported at a much lower fee. So you see this slide here, and offline, you have import duties, you have value-added taxes, you have consumption tax, depending on the country, and that can range anywhere from 25, 40%. Japan has a 10% VAT on top of that. And with cross-border e-commerce, it's basically a personal exemption that allows the consumer to buy directly from the foreign supplier. Now, that being said, there is usually a one-time fee. In China, they have a one-time fee of anywhere from 8 or 9% up to 20% that is paid by the consumer when they buy, but that's it. Once that's paid, that's the only add-on to the actual product other than the logistics cost and the cost of the goods, which we'll talk about later. And then you see here, what's really interesting is if you were selling in a traditional way, you would have to go through proper registration, maybe the Ministry of Health, maybe other ministries. You would have to relabel in most countries. With cross-border e-commerce, the product as is sold directly to the consumer. Now, that's a very interesting development, because for years and years and years, we've always had products we get with a label. Well, this is, you get what you see in an American store shelf. And that's actually the appeal to the buyer in many countries. They want to know there's integrity with the product they're getting. They're actually getting the US product. So this idea of cross-border e-commerce and bringing products directly from America to the consumer has had wide appeal. Next slide, please. Well, okay, that's a mouthful. We'll take a step back. So how does this all really work? Well, think of it this way. If you are selling on Shopify or Amazon, what happens in this process? You may have a warehouse and you may have product there. You get an order. You are actually, your company is pick, packing, and shipping. And maybe you go to a UPS store, or maybe UPS comes and picks up, or you go to USPS, and then that's dropped off and sent directly to the consumer. The same concept is working when we directly ship small parcels to consumers in other parts of the world, and particularly Asia. So what actually happens, many of the platforms now, let's say it's Tmall Global or JD, they'll have a local warehouse in Los Angeles. So they may have one model where you're consigning your goods and an order comes on the website, their platform. That order then is picked, packed, and shipped. They bundle together many of these shipments, and then by airplane, that is sent overnight to China. And then it reaches customs. Because it is cross-border shipments, it's moved into a special zone. And as I said, that duty's already paid for that shipment, and then it's dropped into the last mile delivery. So this could be as fast as 72 hours, more likely 5 days, could be 7 days, even 10 days. And in traditional cross-border, when you are a buyer on these e-marketplaces, you'll get that notice. You are buying directly from a foreign supplier, expect 5 to 10 days for delivery. For most consumers, depending on the item, that may be okay if they are looking for something very specific. But we know we live in an Amazon world, so I look sometimes and I need the product the same day. I want to look at that and know I'm going to get it fast. The idea of the bonded warehouse is essentially trying to get the same benefit you would get with Amazon Prime. What happens there, it's more risky to the US brand holder. We have to ship product by ocean. It's delivered to a bonded warehouse, which means that inventory is in a warehouse where it can't be pulled out until it's sold. But once it's sold, that actually goes immediately into local delivery. And hypothetically, that product could be delivered within 48 hours. Some items like pet food, US pet food, have to be sent by bonded warehouse, cannot be done the other mode I'm talking about, direct from our storefront or warehouse here to the consumer. So there are two models here for logistics that make it very attractive for foreign buyers buying on these marketplaces, and also gives you as a US seller a way to really have very competitive delivery models to the consumer. Next slide, please. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so this was somewhat not updated, and I apologize. This was a slide, but it gives you an idea, again, of what I'm talking about. What is the appeal to cross-border e-commerce? If you're in the health and wellness business, if you're in supplements, protein powders, beauty products, all natural products, food products, it can be very challenging. You may be looking at, for one SKU, 1 year, $100,000, let's say, if it's a SKU related to OTC, over the counter kind of wellness / pharma in a market like China or Korea. However, cross-border e-commerce has allowed these same brands to bypass those regulatory barriers. Next slide, please. Well, the one good thing is that consumers in most of these markets are going to pay more to buy cross-border, probably more than they would to pay offline, but the demand, even in China, and I can tell you this is real time. Before I got on this call, I was talking by WeChat with Douyin. Douyin is the parent company, or the sister, I should say, of TikTok. They're still actively searching for US brands to sell on Douyin Shop, which is their equivalent of TikTok in China. And what is the driver? The consumer interest in health and wellness, particularly post-pandemic, and food products has never been higher. So there's tremendous interest still. And then in ASEAN countries, unfortunately, they've had great economic growth, but at the price of their health. And so, again, those products are tremendously exciting to consumers there. In fact, if you want to do a very simple survey, go to a Costco, and you'll find in cities like Irvine, you'll see ethnic Chinese, overseas Chinese, you'll see overseas Vietnamese. And what are they buying? They're buying mass quantities of supplements. So it gives you a good idea of what sells. And then finally, not only is it marketplaces like the JD and the Shopee and Lazada and Tmall, Amazon to a very small degree in Asia, but what you're finding out is TikTok, which they call TikTok in most markets outside of China, Zalo in Vietnam, these social media platforms like our Facebook are growing leaps and bounds, and they are becoming both social media messaging platforms and online shopping platforms. And so that's a very interesting development. Next slide, please. And again, I guess this was sort of disjointed. It should have followed the slide I had 2 slides ago, which is that for organic certification or other regulatory matters, it's very difficult in the traditional offline distribution world. However, this has been set up very well for ability to do business through cross-border and online sales. Now, that being said, if you look at number 2, I will tell you, Vietnam, I was very excited. We were about to set up as CBEC Asia, a piloting model. But what we found is for a lot of these very attractive areas like supplements and health and wellness, you can get on a platform. You can get on a Tiki. You can get on Lazada and Shopee. That's not too difficult. The problem is still the customs in a place like Vietnam will do secondary screening. So what that means is you may be able to sell to a consumer, the consumer buys on those marketplaces, but then when the product arrives, they'll be asked to come to customs to do a secondary investigation. So it's not what we would expect. And this is moving very fast. The good news is all of ASEAN is coming to a digital agreement platform. What I hear is there's going to be new bonded warehouses established in different parts of Southeast Asia. So we're still probably a year, 2 years off of having this real efficient e-commerce model where we know products can be sold quickly and efficiently to consumers. Right now, there's some fits and starts, and I have to be very honest about that. But in many places, that is a way to get around it. Vietnam is especially difficult. Thailand is better. Singapore is very advanced. And actually, if you're selling on Amazon here, Amazon's got a very good path to set up and onboard very quickly in Singapore, which is something I would probably encourage all of you to do if you're not doing now. Next slide. Well, I want to give you guys a bit of a assessment that I would do quickly, kind of the rapid fire assessment. If you're thinking that you're ready because you're selling online in the United States and you think you want to start selling cross-border, here are a few things to think about. Number 1, you need to have digital authorization. So it's best you have registered your brand with the US PTO, which is, by the way, part of the Department of Commerce. And do that right away if you have it. If you have, great. You don't need necessarily to register in a foreign country. One thing, CBEC Asia has been very successful. We've helped over 25 brands register both in Southeast Asia and in China at the most cost-effective rate. One thing, and I know Simona's an expert at, there is California STEP money that will help to protect your digital assets and even pay money to promote and cross border. I played a little role in helping get that approved, but you need the digital asset protection in the United States. If you're thinking about trying to sell in China and on board on a Tmall or JD or Douyin, I would absolutely on the front end encourage to do a search and then register your trademark. It's not difficult at all. You may be very surprised what you find out. Okay, the next most important thing is, can I make money doing this? I have to be very honest. When we first started, if you sell your product for $50 online, and that's the retail, then your wholesale out price where you can comfortably make money would be, you know, $25, maybe $30. So it's 40% off, 50% off retail. That was a workable model in 2018 and 2020. What we're finding now is to really make money, and I mean make money, not just tread water online. You need to have minimum 50% margin in your product, and better yet, be closer to 70, 80%. Now, I know some of you may scream and say, well, I'm in the supplement business and I'm working with a contract manufacturer, the same for the beauty industry. I'm not big enough to produce it internally. That is the rub. To be quite candid, we don't see people making a lot of money. We don't see brands unless they're working in that margin range. And so that's why it is really finding that needle in the haystack that can be wildly successful. Now, hot products, I just mentioned health and wellness. Beauty is always in demand if it's something unique and interesting. If a product is selling in Costco, that is a gold standard. It can do very well on these platforms because that's the first thing consumers look at to see if it's selling somewhere, either on Amazon or in Costco. And it's that market awareness. For brands that are not well known, this is a more challenging endeavor to go, particularly through marketplaces in North Asia. Next slide, please. This sort of reiterates that, but I will hit on a couple factors. If you're going to step in the shoes of the buyers in Asia and other parts of the world that want to buy online, what are the drivers they're looking for? Now, price is always a driver if they can get something cheaper online than they could offline. But the other issue is they may not be able to get it offline for the reasons we said. It's very difficult to get a good brand approved to sell offline. So that's always in the back of folks' mind that want to buy. And the buyer, who are they? The Gen Z, the 20 to 30-year-olds are always big drivers for cross-border e-commerce. And then quality. As I said, there's always a desire to get a better quality product, particularly in food and health and beauty. And then finally, this other green dot there, the social media buzz. If there is a great story, and it is one that's very strong, particularly told in a social media environment, that translates anywhere in the world. So those are the big factors behind why consumers buy cross-border. Next slide, please. Well, one thing I just mentioned about the digital asset protection is platforms are still challenged to police up their operations. Now, I will tell you, if you buy some items on Amazon, there's a lot of questions. Are these fake products, particularly beauty products, when you see the price a lot cheaper than they are in retail? So I know even here there's questions, but it's much worse in parts of the world, different parts of the world. Bullepek, Tokopedia, these are big platforms in Indonesia, and fakes have been a challenge. People pirating and copying brands. That gets back to having and protecting your digital assets. So trademark squatters are out there. The big platforms, Alibaba, which by the way owns Lazada and Shopee, have taken great efforts to try to police that up. And I think our US embassies have been very helpful in that equation. So I don't want to scare you, but eyes wide open, this continues to be an issue. Next slide, please. Some details about platforms I've mentioned multiple times. So Tmall Global is the biggest and most established platform, e-marketplace for selling in China. Originally, you had to be one brand and sell. Things have changed a little bit. You can have models where you can sell multiple brands under an industry cluster. And again, for premium organic certified brands, it's excellent. JD, very strong in every category. I didn't put pet, but they dominate there too. And again, their platforms are primarily in China. They own assets in other markets, but the big ones in Southeast Asia are Lazada and Shopee. As I mentioned, Lazada is a wholly owned subsidiary of Alibaba. And then I already mentioned TikTok and Zallo, these social media platforms that are becoming critical e-commerce markets. Next slide, please. Well, one thing I will tell you that's interesting is still, I don't want to say you're going online at the expense of going offline. That is certainly not the case. What you're finding when you go in different parts of the world, and this could also be global, this just happens to be Southeast Asia, is that many of the e-commerce companies are also big players in retail. So if you ever go to Thailand, what you find out very quickly is the CP Group is this dominant group that owns properties across the board. They own all the many of the major leading retail groups, but they also have online properties. And 7-Eleven, you may go, well, wait a minute, what's this about 7-Eleven? I think 7-Eleven, by the way, is the ultimate globalization story. Started in the United States, purchased by Japan, made more efficient, still operates, of course, very successfully in the US, but it is modified dramatically in other parts of the world. So in Thailand, it's the third largest country for 7-Eleven, about 13,000 individual units. What makes it very interesting is they have the storefronts, they have a fleet 7-Eleven of motorcycle delivery people. So they have the ultimate delivery fleet for e-commerce. They have a model to pay for e-commerce transactions at their store. And on top of that, they have a platform for online sales called 24/7. So many of these companies, if you can start selling online, you can sell offline with them. If you can start selling offline, you can start using their online platforms. And this is sort of a composite throughout all of Southeast Asia. So just wanted to share that. Next slide, please. Okay, this is sort of interesting. This is a updated slide of who's who and how they rank as far as e-commerce platforms in Southeast Asia. What you see with the orange is Shopee is the leading and dominant player. Shopee was originally funded out of China, but it's a Singapore-based company, operates very differently than Lazada, tends to be more premium brands. So then you see Lazada is a strong number 2 in most of these countries. And then in Indonesia, the Tokopedia, there's local e-commerce platforms. But what you see is it's kind of a two-horse race, but it is not really showcasing how strong the social media operators like TikTok are. But this is a really interesting snapshot. Next slide, please. Now, the question you probably want to know is what is selling online? So pretty obvious that electronics are the obvious leader because there's not a lot of explanation needed to sell a phone case, a phone charger, and things like that. But beyond that, then what you see is beauty, fashion, and then food, like I was talking about, packaged and healthy food. That's a sweet spot that is growing pretty rapidly. So that's very encouraging for US brands. Next slide. Well, this gets back to what I said, which was the genesis behind CBEC Asia. This is a slide that I stole from these guys. It was a third-party logistics company and 3PL that was kind of managing for that shoe selling back 7, 8 years ago. But even then, what you were seeing in the way that the model in Thailand grew was what they called chat or social commerce was driving most of the online sales. And that ecosystem was Facebook and Instagram, which is exciting for us because if you're selling in China, the social media and influencing tools are very much a closed system. But the good thing in Southeast Asia, it is our social media tools that we're very experienced on. And then Line is the equivalent to WhatsApp or WeChat, the big and popular messaging app in the country. Next slide. This is to give you an idea of how huge Dalian is. I mentioned that I was just talking with them. They have like 1 billion users that have access to this. And you can kind of see how big the social media platforms are. They're just, the access and use of them all over Asia is dramatically growing. And this is probably already outdated from 24. Next slide. Okay, so this gives you some granular information and gives kind of food for thought for you. And you don't have to be a big company. This picture at the top is actually someone's home in Vietnam, I believe in Ho Chi Minh City. And this is a posting on Zalo, the social media messaging app. And you can see below kind of the message there. And what it's saying in short is, hey, fresh stock from America. And if you look closely, what is that? These are either Kirkland or Costco brands that they bought. From the bottom, Tylenol, and then like your multivitamin, and I don't know what the other blue one is. And this is very common. Now, how are they getting that product there? Well, this is another form of doing e-commerce business. If you go to Little Saigon, you'll find many small logistics companies that can move very fair price your products, a small box, directly to Vietnam. And they have what they call kind of suitcase trade to get it around customs, and they can get it there very quickly. And so that product that gets there this way gets up on social media and is a form of selling, and then they'll use motorcycle delivery, because there's all kinds of simple logistics resources to get the product to the consumer. And the selling, the payment model could be on Zalo. They have their own tool, or they have all of these different kind of bank transfer models that are very interesting. Okay, next slide. And this also, by the way, that slide there was a picture from the women's shoes sell back in 2017 from Thailand. But you can see this is a TikTok shop on Thailand, very common. Lots of great entrepreneurs that are small little businesses that either moonlight or that's their whole business, doing social selling. Next slide. And as I mentioned, if you compare and contrast, one of the reasons Southeast Asia is so attractive is that we can use all of the traditional social media and e-commerce tools we're familiar with. And then you compare and contrast that with China, it's a lot more difficult because the ecosystem is much more closed. Next slide. And so payment models, Richard mentioned that, Grab and Shopee and Lazada all have their models. Alipay and WeChat Pay are all over Southeast Asia, as well as China, the most popular. But believe it or not, I want to say this last one, cash on delivery, is wildly popular. 30–40% of sales in a country like Vietnam are done by cash on delivery. And I'm old enough to remember when those ads back in the 80s said no CODs. From an American point of view, it's highly risky, but you can contract with DHL, and they have models where they will provide that service of cash on delivery. The only risk is probably 25 to 30% of all COD orders are canceled. And so it's highly risky for foreign operators to use that. But I want to share the kind of models that are being used in the region. Next slide. Again, why is cross-border e-commerce have an opportunity? Maybe you know or don't know this, but importing into the United States has always been a real big benefit for us as consumers. We can buy, and you remember, and you go through customs, they'll ask you, have you bought more than $800 in goods? We all have a personal exemption of up to $800 through what we call this de minimis value. Now, that has changed for Chinese companies shipping to the United States. We have basically stopped or stalled that de minimis shipping benefit for overseas vendors from China to the US. But for us selling into Malaysia and the Philippines and Thailand and China, there is a very nice personal exemption number. You look at Singapore, essentially we have a free trade agreement, so it's essentially zeroed out. But you look at Malaysia, you look at Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia. Cambodia, by the way, is talking about raising that to $300 can be shipped to a consumer in Cambodia without any duty. Indonesia, that's a challenge because there's really no de minimis gap. But China, the de minimis window is close to $800. So it's been very favorable. I'm hoping because of bilateral trade that doesn't change, but that has really opened up a big opportunity here. And you know, what are the drivers for cross-border e-commerce? As I mentioned, logistics have become much easier. As you've heard, we can get products very quickly. Also, the fact is consumers are changing their habits just like we are. They may buy online or they may buy in store and pick up in store from an online purchase. And this merging of the offline to online is really growing fast. And then, of course, the age-old interest to have more and higher quality is a driver for the buying class we're looking at. Next slide, please. Here's some photos I thought were interesting. So in the upper corner, you see the motorcycle delivery. That is in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City. That's a picture below when I was at the Lazada headquarter in Singapore. Shopee headquarter there too. I'm sharing a brand at the bottom called Sun Warrior. They do really well offline, but they've also established a very good online business, and we've played a little role to help them. And they're also selling in 7-Eleven. This is very interesting. I always tell people 7-Eleven is a very interesting retail model. As I mentioned, so 7-Eleven is now Japanese headquartered, but Thailand is one of their key markets. This was a vending machine in Thailand of like the 100 most popular products right by their BTS. So if Japan and Thailand were to have 7-Eleven were to have a baby, this is what would come out of it. And it's very interesting. So that's another model of retail where your product may end up. And then finally at the bottom on the left side below the motorcycle, these are knives that my wife's, who's from Vietnam, her relative is selling through Zallo. He sells these used knives he refurbishes from Japan, and he sells on Zallo. One of the models he uses is COD, and he's the guy that told us 20 to 25% of the orders can be canceled. But then he contracts with a little motorcycle company like that to deliver the product, and they pick up the money and then they bring it back to him. So that kind of gives you a slice of how that's working. Next slide, please. Well, wanted to share a little bit. So you've all heard about probably live streaming. So social media brand development is critical, and influencers, these are 3 different influencers, play a very big role. I took out a slide I had of a live stream that I actually witnessed in Los Angeles in a warehouse that was done on the Shopee platform for Taiwan, and literally a group of young women were selling down jackets, kind of a no brand, and they were able to sell several $1,000s in a matter of an hour. So live streaming can be done anywhere by anybody, but that is a big facilitator for creating sales. Next slide. And then I want to end by explaining again that the model for e-commerce is a little bit blurred. So Redmart is a Lazada real estate, or you could say a piece of Lazada, but it's a B2B2C model. And how that works is there's an offline distributor that has inventory of, in this case, food, grocery items, and then they sell and onboard onto this model, Redmart. And I'll show you. Next slide, please. Oh, I guess I didn't have it there. Well, in any event, what it was is that there were a couple of different brands. I guess that picture wasn't clear enough, that are American brands that were onboarded by a Singaporean company. They've used the online selling on Redmart because it's very popular. But what it did mostly is drive the consumers into retail to buy the same brand. So it's not the traditional, you're going to sell on a e-marketplace, you're going to sell to an offline distributor who then will leverage that. And that is an example of success stories. As I mentioned, organic beauty brands, these functional food and health supplements are wildly successful. Products that have eco-friendly messages and packaging. And I can say even beyond that, if the proposition is that product is environmentally sound, it's going to resonate particularly with this generation of strong buyers. Next slide. Oh, okay, so here's what I was looking for. Here's Sun Warrior, and then up above this is actually a pork rind, believe it or not. Challenging because in Singapore there's a lot of Muslim buyers, but the Chinese, Singaporeans, and others will buy this, and it's been wildly successful by using this red mark. Next slide. And if you're interested in the possibility of selling a fast-moving consumer good, we at CBEC Asia established a really good relationship with Thailand 7-Eleven to do a product review. I have to tell you, it's slow and it's challenging because price points are always tricky. But if you think you have a product that could potentially sell there, let us know. You can list through this link or just reach out to me at info@CBEC Asia. Next slide. I think that may be it. I go back to this. The exciting thing is if you're interested in cross-border e-commerce, the STEP funds can help you actively promote and start onboarding through cross-border e-commerce. And that's been a real nice development. There was a program for China with beauty that was done, I think, last year. And there's been some other models too, as I said, just for digital asset protection using STEP funds. So I'm excited that those resources are available. Next slide. I don't know what I have in here. Well, okay, that's not me. So anyway, hopefully that wasn't too fast, Richard. I don't know if there's any questions. Hi there.
Mark, you're so on time right now. So we are in a break mode, but and then we'll have James Bledsoe from our e-commerce innovation lab. But let's take some questions. Anybody drop something into the chat, but Mark, I've got a question for you. You had mentioned something about protecting your brand and how important with that is. Having the Patent and Trademark Office in the U.S. Department of Commerce, we work closely with our PTO folks to try to preempt that. I can only say this is the best upfront strategy one could possibly do. Protect your IP, protect your brand, protect your website, all of that stuff. We're there to help you if you need that. So going forward, once you've got all that done, knowing the payment mechanisms, the marketing strategy, it's not a panacea for everything. You've got to do some self-marketing and you've got to position your product well in that market. We still have services to help you drive traffic to your website, to your program. In fact, we have a strategic partnership with Coupang. Mark, we really didn't get into that yet, but it's just one we have. It's one of the platforms used in Korea. We're currently, helping companies get work with that platform. It's just one platform. We're not endorsing that over anything, but we have a strategic platform for that. And so look for these individual platforms. Mark, you mentioned a few that are key in Asia, key in China, but I think in general, each country has some good dynamic localized platforms. Anything else in terms of just setting yourself up and things you need to know before you launch into this?
Well, I'll say a couple things. Last week we had an event with AliExpress, Temu, and Shein. And it's very interesting. These have been platforms with Chinese products selling to U.S. consumers. They're opening their platforms for U.S. brands to sell to U.S. consumers. So you should take advantage of that. If you're interested, I can give you the links to these big high-level people on the platform because they're really trying to aggregate brands. Start local. Once you're established with that, there's opportunities to use their cross-border models too to sell in China, but not everybody's interested in that. So in no way do I say, hey, go to these difficult markets. I kind of I threw cold water. I know it's not easy. However, real time this morning, I'm dealing with a high level person on Dalian that's desperately looking to onboard good, particularly supplements and beauty brands. There's always interest there. So I know pricing and I know digital protection are problematic. Eyes wide open. It's difficult, but there are opportunities there. That's what I wanted to share. And then finally, what I wanted to tell you is that much like the RETAP program, California eTech, which is the backdrop here, we have a training program and we have an event that will be promoting the export of service industries. So if you're interested to sell your know-how, licensing, I'm going to be sending out more information. I just wanted to make you aware of that. So I put up in the chat the servicesummit.org web link. It's a work in progress. And thank you very much. Happy, I'll put an email you can reach me at here in the chat, info@CBEC Asia, which I think Maurice and Simona will be sending out. But
Yeah.
good luck,
We'll,
everybody. And I think I will be circling back with you to talk about another aspect of export in the coming weeks.
Awesome, Mark. Thanks so much. We do have a little question here. I'll get you the information, our U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and all of our IP.
And I will say, Richard, I'm hoping to get a speaker from the USPTO to the Service Summit because
Okay.
All service providers and product providers have to be thinking about this, and we really need to hear from the horse's mouth all the tools that are available.
Absolutely. There was a question from Tara Usami. It was just a general question to everyone. It's hard to keep your retail price as AI controls selling prices on EC like Amazon. Many brands do not want to sell through Amazon. So don't want to say one portal over another, one platform over another. But Mark, what about the AI issue and price? Maybe we could have brought this up to Dr.
Well, you know what? This is a problem. You know, that's why Engage, whether it's Amazon or Walmart.com or these other marketplaces I talk to, they all say they want to be below this and that. The best way and the only way you can do that is what really strong brands do. They have a MAP pricing or a market approved pricing, and you have to police it. And the same thing, because I just introduced 2 brands to Dalian and they said, oh, we're seeing it on Taobao. Well, the reality is maybe there's IRB out there, maybe there's another angle. You have to work actively to police your own brand because guaranteed somebody's going to get it wholesale and get a one-time order. But the brands that are successful over time are finding a way to do this brand management through active enforcement of MAP. And that's all you can do. But, you know, it's going to be challenging. There's no doubt that is one of the reasons e-commerce is challenging.
And a hybrid model, you guys, is not off the table either. I've appreciated the fact that even platforms here domestically, like Walmart, will honor online pricing if it's lower than what their retail pricing is on the shelf. And you know, for me, that bodes well.
I think if I'm getting this right, Lelaine asked a really good question. Start with Amazon. The very first thing to do is use Amazon to go into Canada and Mexico. Let's forget about April 2nd and what may happen. And in other markets too, you can onboard into Europe. Singapore is an easy market to onboard too. But remember, much like Amazon here, you still have to do brand development. I've talked to several folks 2 or 3 years ago that used Amazon. They rushed into Singapore Amazon and then found out, wait a minute, I sent inventory and then nothing happened. You still have to have the work to build the brand. And that's where the rub is. It still comes down to that.
Great. All right, Mark, let's let him have a little break here.
Okay.
We'll come back in about 8 minutes with our good friend and colleague, James Bloodsoe. Again, Mark, thank you so much to you. And we'll see you later on in the program in another episode. And everyone, we'll see you back here at around 11 o'clock and take a little break. And thank you again, Sandra, for operating the technical part of this, and Maurice for being our leader here. Anyways, Mark, have a good rest of the day.
Everybody. Have a good one,
brother.
All
Take
right,
care.
bye.
Yep.
I have to bring the workshops. What is the next workshop? 4.
We have Mr. James and ours. I don't know.
Right. No,
The
one.
next program, you guys, is How to Build and Use E-commerce for Export Sales by James Bledsoe. So we'll put that up in a minute here.
Next week, what is the workshop?
Quick question on that. Do you want me to share my screen or will you be running the slides?
Whichever is convenient for you.
I think, yeah,
I can run
James.
my own slides. That way I don't have to say next slide.
Okay,
So,
good job. Thanks, buddy.
all right, thank you.
Yeah. We got 39 attendees, James, so it's been a good morning thus far. So,
Excellent. Yeah,
and
pretty good turnout.
Yeah. I'll call out any questions in chat. But go ahead, feel free to look at the chat as well. And then I'll give you a little intro in a few minutes here.
Sure, I appreciate that. Just out of curiosity, what's the main interest of the audience? What are kind of the general questions?
Well, I mean, this is a full
towards?
program. This is a program that was supported by the state of California's Office of Economic Development. It's specifically designed for export training. So there's about 8 organizations in California, including one up by you, the Women's Marketplace, W Marketplace. And they're down here doing their programs as well. It's funding from the state of California for export development and training. The unique thing about this one is it's a really great series. You're the 3rd chapter of this series, but it also culminates in companies who are export ready to actually tap into utilizing services out there, some of ours, and possibly a WGR. So let's talk to them about utilizing the website globalization review. But, other services are available. We have a company that happens to be on today who is actually in the middle of utilizing our services. I believe it's our initial market check. And so that's offset by a fund that's attached to this particular export training program. So there is funding available through the grant program through the state of California to offset our services. So if somebody wants to sign up for the WGR, Website Globalization Review, we can look in to see if they're eligible to get that offset. And the chamber is helping out Maurice and Simona in the program to coordinate that participation agreement and that link to pay for it. So that's good news.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It's unique.
Yeah, hopefully I can give a good enough description of the service to get the right folks interested in it.
Oh yeah, you and I both. I mean, I would be interested in just engaging folks. I think it's the best first way of really engaging people. And after that, you really set yourself up to utilize all these other services: initial market check, single company promotion, international company profile, background check. I mean, but first start with, what everybody is going to see, which is your website. So let's
Very
give it
good,
another
very good.
few minutes here, Mark, or a few minutes, James. Mark really set the stage for you too, by the way. He did a great program on just the transactional value of e-commerce and the payment part of it, and kind of doing that marketing to supplement your online presence.
Excellent.
Hi, James. Do you want to test your screen by I made you co-host, right?
Oh, that is terrible lighting. Let me switch screens here. Got the window in my office behind me. There we go. That's slightly better. Okay. And share. You able to see?
Looks good.
All right.
And if I field any questions, in the chat, I'll bring them up to you and let you know.
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard. Good morning, everybody. My name is James Bledsoe. I'm director of the E-commerce Solutions Center, and my office is a national office that works through local offices, like with Richard Swanson there, to help bring digital strategy and e-commerce strategy to our business clients. A bit about myself. I am a U.S. Air Force veteran, served 2 tours in Iraq. I also hold a bachelor's degree in international relations and Mandarin Chinese from Washington State University. And from the University of Washington, I hold a master's degree in international relations with a focus on China area studies. I've been director of the e-commerce solutions center now for, I believe, 8 years, as Richard mentioned. Time flies. But in that time, I've managed to refine our message and a very solid strategy that we help our business clients utilize to maximize your online overseas consumer acquisition. Why are we focused on that? As the Department of E-commerce, the Department of Commerce focusing on e-commerce, because e-commerce is exports and our business is helping exports. And so if e-commerce helps your exports, that's something we want to help as well. So let me get started with our presentation. Can we see the slides all right?
Oh yeah,
Excellent.
you're all good.
Excellent. So a little bit of housekeeping before we start. I know Richard probably has touched on these before, but I always like to try to touch on them at least another time to reinforce these throughout my presentations. But the U.S. Commercial Service as a whole, our organization, the one I work for, we focus again on exporting, primarily being export counseling, but we also provide some market intelligence, some business matchmaking services like the Gold Key, international partner search, as well as offer some commercial diplomacy assistance. So for instance, if you have some product at the port, perhaps that customs isn't passing through, you need some assistance with that. That's something that our offices, local trade specialists, can help you get to the bottom of. So we're here to help you export, that is, to sell your products and services to overseas consumers. Now, where that crosses with the digital sphere and e-commerce, again, is in that e-commerce sales channel, in businesses selling through their websites, through marketplaces, through social media, leveraging all the e-commerce sales channels to capitalize and meet those consumers where they are and get that ROI out of that online sales channel. So the main thing I like to reinforce with businesses as we look at e-commerce is that e-commerce as a sales channel is continually growing despite global contractions, economies maybe not selling as much. E-commerce sales are continually growing. That is through website, through social media, through marketplaces, through electronic commerce. It is all growing and will be continue growing through the foreseeable future. One thing I also like to share, and I found recently, rediscovered. I remember coming across this about 20 years ago and finding it quite funny. But even more so now with regards to e-commerce and AI, I see a lot of the attitudes, fears, and hopes mirroring that of the mid-90s, when this brand new thing called the World Wide Web was first out there. And folks said, hey, it's making me uneasy. It'll never work. Maybe people will, gosh, I don't know, telecommute. Did we ever end up doing that? I think we did, yeah. So with that same logic, looking to e-commerce and AI, we can see history repeating itself. And I see it very clearly repeating itself with everything from the fears to the hopes that are riding on this technology, this platform of technologies. And so what I want to do is to help you all see it for what it is by covering basic facts and data to dispel the mystery that is e-commerce, that could be surrounding this for you all. So real quick, looking at the numbers, what's growing worldwide? Well, aside from China, which by sheer volume of the people there, a lot more folks than us, a lot more e-commerce. It's just basic logic. Outside of that, we've got the US, us, growing with e-commerce. Or in fact, we're leading the way by per capita, not by population and actual users, but by innovations. But that's to say for now. Europe coming up behind us as far as adopting and selling through e-commerce sales channels. And then the rest of the world, in particular Latin America, showing a lot of quick growth and adoption of e-commerce strategies and technologies for selling. What are the product segments for business to consumer, retail, e-commerce, consumer goods? Well, it's the usual what you would expect. The main growth drivers here are going to be obviously electronics, fashion, and furniture, followed by the abbreviation BHPHC, biohealth and pharma, which this can be natural supplements, organic supplements. In overseas markets like Brazil, for example, those are classified as pharmaceuticals, biopharmaceuticals, and require biopharmaceutical regulations applied to them. And so that's why they fall under that and not regular consumables. But those are the growing segments there for e-commerce and what's selling online. Obviously, luxury apparel, lots of disposable income spending on that, home furniture, food and beverage, health and beauty, and home appliances are rounding out the top of the products that are selling worldwide through B2C. The markets, the hot specific countries, not just the regions themselves, but what are the hot growing countries for retail e-commerce? Well, it might surprise you to find out that the Philippines is actually the top growing market. They've seen almost a 25% growth in the last year for retail e-commerce. I just lost my second screen for the slide there, followed by India and Australia. And as you can see, some Latin American countries down there, Mexico, Argentina, are also leading the way when it comes to growth, annual growth. And so those are some high growth markets there. Regionally, you can see Asia, again, still leads the way when it comes to revenue. And again, lots of volume of individuals there to make that happen. But when it comes to the adoption of technology and the changing of business, it's these other countries here that are actually leading the way when it comes to that. Now, B2C is half of the equation, or rather, probably 1/8 of the equation. The other 7/8 is B2B. That is everything that is to say not retail, direct to consumer, put it in my shopping cart and purchase. So for B2B, this is services, again, selling to distributors, to retailers, that transaction there. B2B has shifted significantly to e-commerce. The only two markets that are holdouts, that you could call that, from this e-commerce model, where you will still need to travel in country and do it old school, is Japan and South Korea. Those are still the two top markets. Despite their technological advancements, the preference for B2B is still old school, face-to-face, pressing skin, as it were, shaking hands, smiling, getting that content out there, but then also having a very robust website to back up that initial personal interaction there when developing business relationships. Further on the B2B markets, where is it selling? Well, we can see Asia here, this dark blue band, continually leading the way for B2B e-commerce growth, followed by the rest of the world and Europe leading that B2B growth. US, North America lagging behind there, almost steady, unfortunately, on that B2B growth. So let's see if we can flip that around a little bit and start showing some B2B growth here for the USA. Whoops. And then the market share. So what are the leading markets for B2B? Well, again, that would be Asia Pacific region. Lots of warehouses there, lots of storage, lots of business transactions, bulk commodities being sold in the region. So again, leading the way when it comes to B2B. Now, I'll also quickly touch on AI because it's a hot topic. It's something that is at the forefront of most businesses' minds and in the back of just about everybody's mind when it comes to replacement. Is it going to take my job? How does it work for us? Well, to kind of contextualize it for you, it's basically AI for the business communities. It manifests itself in the form of software like CRMs that are better able to talk to each other so they can do the things that were, at least from my perspective, promised 15 years ago out of them and the connections that were being able to be made. AI now makes those connections automatically if you really want to understand what it's about. So what's the impact to industries? Well, the most impact it'll have on industry is banking and insurance. So if you're not in banking or insurance, you don't have to worry about job instability. If you are in banking and insurance, what you have to worry about is those programs that automate processes. If your job is very repetitive, you might be getting replaced by AI that can do the same thing. However, I will caveat this with saying AI is a tool and is only as good as the human being who wields it. So there will never be a zero-person workforce. Somebody needs to tend the machinery and make sure the machinery is behaving. Other machines can never do that. So it will never happen. The most benefit, which industries are going to benefit the most out of AI? Well, it's going to be healthcare and us, government. Again, a lot of this AI is going to be in the form of software. And so we'll be able to make better relationship connections, for example, in our Salesforce CRM to activities and events that are being logged through our other software and platforms. And so for that, we'll have better insights and better clarity that, again, using that example of CRMs from 10 to 15 years ago and the promises of we'll make these connections for you with AI, they actually can happen because that's the function of these tools that are AI. The least impact, who's the safest as far as jobs when it comes to AI? Natural resources, logging, mining, chemical manufacturing, and consumer goods and services sector. Nobody, and I say this with a straight face, nobody wants to talk to a robot when they want to buy something. Do not put AI out there, sales associates. You will go out of business. And so for that, sales associates and humans will always be employed here. They will never lose their jobs when it comes to AI because AI simply can't get that in-depth abstract connection that humans can make in that in-person, face-to-face consumer sales atmosphere. So fear not for AI for all of you out there. So we briefly looked at e-commerce growing as a sales channel, the markets, the individual countries where it's growing the fastest. We touched on AI, a disruptive technology that will either help or do nothing to your industry. How then do you capitalize on e-commerce? How then do you get involved in reaching more overseas consumers through the online sales channels? Well, we break it down into this simple 5-step strategy for our commercial service clients when we engage with them in digital strategy counseling. And it all begins first with sitting down with them one-on-one to help define their digital objectives. Are they a B2B company that wants you to learn more about their products and services on the website? Reach out to sales@abc.com to then request a quote. Or are they selling their services directly from the website where you can purchase it without any need to contact anybody for that? Or are they selling products from their website? Or are they selling products to distributors from their website, so not necessarily requiring a shopping cart? You want to understand what your objectives are first before you start making changes to a website, purchasing software, purchasing service provider work hours. And so you want to define what it is you're doing first. After you do that, the next step is search engine optimization, making sure that the website you built 1 to 10 years ago actually performs as well as you assume it does, that you understand how your website looks to a search bot. The search bot who's looking at all websites and the judge, jury, and executioner as to whether or not you show up on the first page for those search results. So you want to look at your website closely to make sure that it's operating. And 9 times out of 10, they're not operating as good as they could. Every once in a while, through the WGR service that I'll cover here in a minute, every once in a while, I find a good client that has an excellent search score and absolutely no metadata issues. The vast majority, contrary to that, have lots of metadata issues and in some instances, some alarming issues that I'm kind of glad to point out to them. None of the clients know this, however, until they actually look. They don't know that they are metadata issue free or have a lot of metadata issues to fix before doing this SEO step. So that's why it's very important to actually look under the hood of your website, so to speak. Do some sort of search engine optimization service. If it's not our WGR, it's some other one out there. There are plenty, and there are plenty of SEO tools out there as well that you can use on your own. But once you identify these issues, they should not stay there. They should be fixed because, again, you're trying to make your website presentable for a search bot. So you address those digital infrastructure issues, those metadata issues, the need for a shopping cart to have software for a shopping cart installed on your website. Maybe you want a different payment service provider or payment gateway built in so it redirects to their website, what have you. You need to fix these issues as you then begin to look towards how, in step 4, how you're going to sell your products, services, and brand to your clients. The choosing of the e-commerce sales channels. It doesn't matter if you want to sell through your website or social media or any other method online if your website isn't working properly, because nobody's going to find it and you're not going to make a sale to begin with. So all that effort's for naught. Choosing, all right, let's do some digital marketing with our website. All right, let's do some social media. Your search score is possibly a 5 out of 100 and nobody is finding that content. So it makes sense to first make sure your website is functioning, looks great to search bots, then decide how you want to spend your money, your digital marketing spend on these online sales channels. Are your consumers, usually through market research, are they purchasing online from websites? Are they purchasing from marketplaces, online marketplaces? Or are they purchasing through social media? So that's something that through market intelligence, market research, something we can help you with, you can better understand to choose your e-commerce sales channel mix. Now, last and certainly not least is your e-commerce key performance indicators. You need to be able to benchmark this and tell whether or not it's working, and more importantly, making you money. because we're not doing this for fun. We're not doing it to support digital marketers necessarily. We're involved in websites and spending money on them because ideally that will get us more money out of it in the end, a return on investment. The only way you can tell whether or not that's going to happen is if you A, are watching your website analytics, and B, can transfer those website analytics into easily Googleable math formulas, business math formulas, to determine your conversion rate or your e-commerce ROI from dividing your visitors, from your sales, so you can understand whether or not it's working here for you. So you don't just keep throwing money needlessly at this if it's, again, not functioning properly. So let's dive into how a functioning website should actually look and break that down, break that process of search engine optimization down so we understand why we're doing all of this. So how does a search engine actually work? Well, it's actually quite simple. On the World Wide Web, you've got all the search engines: Google, Yahoo, Ask, MSN, Bing, Yandex in Russia, Naver in South Korea, Baidu in China. They're all essentially the same. First, they copy Google's code because Google hires the best engineers and writes the best standard code. Bing, Ask, MSN, they all copy that code and change it slightly for color variances or branding, what have you. But essentially, it's all the same instructions. Furthermore, what makes all of these search engines the same is they all have their own version of a web crawler, a search bot, a spider, whatever you want to call it. It is a robot with robots programming, minus the physical body. And what Google, Yahoo, Ask, MSN, Yandex, Baidu all do is they program their robots and say, go out and find information, index it. And the reason you're doing this is you're creating an index card of what you find on every web page out there on the internet. And why? Oh, why? What's our master plan as Google to have these robots go out and create these index cards? Well, our index card drawer, which happens to be the search results, shows each and every one of these index cards that gets created by these robots that we've designed. So when you're doing search engine optimization, you're doing nothing more than making sure that when a robot that is programmed to find A, B, and C on a website, when it does come to your website, and it will, that it finds A, B, and C. And more importantly, A, B, and C are filled out and not left blank for its index card. That, in a nutshell, is search engine optimization. Now, it does get a little bit more complicated with things like screen formatting sizes and images or videos, for instance. This little robot here doesn't actually have eyes, so it can't see that this is a multivitamin with magnesium in it unless I tell it with text, and you don't know it either unless I tell you with text. So that's the same concept, that this robot only sees every entity out there with these keywords. So with that in mind, this is an A, B, or C that needs to be filled out on their index card. And when we do our WGR service, oftentimes we find these blank or with image 1, which isn't very descriptive of a multivitamin containing magnesium that this search bot needs for its indexing of the information. It doesn't guess, because you make vitamins, that this has to be magnesium, and it certainly doesn't read the label because it's a robot. It only knows the text that I, a human, when I created the website, provided for it. And this is the keywords for search engine optimization that we discuss. So hopefully that breaks down something that is seems a little bit too complicated into a little bit more of a manageable process. Search engine optimization, search engines, all it is a programmed robot that has instructions to go find information, and it's your job to make sure your website has that information, because if you don't put it there, it's not there. It doesn't just show up. Now, the next part of this, you might be familiar with one of these terms, localization. So that is the last step in a three-part process that begins first with internationalization and also begins with our WGR gap analysis service. And so with localization, digital marketers will sell you the ability to sell directly into the market by translating your website into that market. How do you know if you're going to get the sales out of that market? You don't. And so you want to dial it back until you do know that you're going to get sales out of that market. And internationalization is that dialed back. It's making sure that your regular .com can be found through search engine optimization. Will it show up in a search? In addition to that, you look at your website to make sure that it indicates that you're open for overseas sales. Moving on from that, you will then focus on regionalization, which is going from a worldwide approach to we're focusing on Asia or Middle East or the African subcontinent here, based on website indicators, regionalized pages. So what does that look like? Well, here's some internationalization best practices that we teach in our WGR service. Again, in addition to making sure that your website is mechanically sound and that a search bot that is programmed to like perfect websites looks at your website and likes it, you make it clear on your website that you're open for international sales, that you don't have these page not found things, that you have things like made in New York, made in USA at the top of your website. We do international sales, maybe an international sales tab. You're also adding things like keywords and backlinks to your website. Why? Because search bots are programmed to like that stuff. And so you constantly need to put content out there. That content through blog posts and newsletters, again, is keywords and content. This is a backlink right here, essentially. If this were a web page, the URL spelled out on my page here, that's the type of stuff you want to add to your website on a regular basis that the search bots like. Humans also like it too, but this is the hidden audience to showing up in search, is the search bots. So what are some common issues that we see with websites that go through our WGR service when it comes to internationalization? Well, a lot of folks don't have a good international contact us page. They don't have the full phone number. Sometimes they won't have the +1 indicating it's a US based business. Contact support may be info at, which doesn't really build a rapport or trust. However, Robert at abccompany.com does. Doesn't matter if you don't have a Robert, it's better than sales at or info at. It's not generic. It's an actual person that I, James, can interact with conceivably through this email. And also don't do things like this. I've seen this on a few occasions with the contact us, spelling out the phone number right there. I understand the logic behind that, wanting to protect the phone number from spam bots and getting spam calls. However, I don't think it necessarily works that well. And also, what if, bear with me, what if I, as a consumer from overseas, don't speak English at all, to the effect that I can't even read 208. Now, I can read that in Chinese and Japanese just fine, being multilingual. However, we can't assume that everybody's multilingual and can read English. So you want to make sure that those numbers are there. And then also, that's for search indexing as well. How does your phone number show up in Google search? Well, it's not spelled out. That's for certain. Here's some examples of best practices, what you should look to do on your website that we recommend on our WGR service. Things like indicating free shipping on orders over a certain amount for worldwide, made in the USA. That is a very clear indicator that you do international sales. Having a translation drop-down menu, again, indicating you're anticipating foreign visitors, perhaps. Having an international sales tab, as you can see right here. International, meet the international sales support team. Do they do international sales? I think so, based on their website. News and blog right here. This you can see keywords: personal care products, industry, massage oils, body oils, adult. Okay, so keywords right there. Didn't read that close enough, but keywords are on this website right here in this posting, and these are the ones you want to put out there for search. And then also you see here affiliations on this other website, links to their partners. These are backlinks. These aren't just the logos. You can click on them and go to the websites. Those are the backlinks that help boost your website search score, because you know these websites. You're not alone. You don't just exist on your own out there in cyberspace. You're connected. And this is what the search bots like to see, and the international consumer as well. I want to know you're connected with the local Chamber of Commerce, the LA area Chamber of Commerce, the San Diego Chamber of Commerce. I'm sorry, I don't know if there are those or not. Or more importantly, if you're here in Washington, the Seattle Chamber of Commerce, the Washington State Department of Commerce, communicating with them. We want to see those links there on your website down at the bottom. And then also showing payment options, not just credit card, but then also online e-payment for other options for overseas consumers. And then wrapping up here, I'll just highlight this. International sales. Here we've got an actual sales individual. They just like a professional LinkedIn profile, put their picture up there, reach out to this guy here to learn more. That's perfect. I can put a face to a name. I'm reaching out to somebody, and not just a blank email box, but an actual individual. These are all best practices to earn and gain that overseas consumer trust in your website. So you heard me mention this WGR gap analysis service a few times as one of those SEO services. What is it exactly? Well, it's our proprietary service that focuses on internationalization and looks at your website through two unique lenses. One, search engine optimization. Again, what's the point of recommending changes to your website if it can't show up because the search bots don't like it? So we check to make sure and hold up a mirror essentially to your website and allow you to see that technical report of what the search bots see, or more importantly, what they do not see and need to be put there for them to like your website and therefore increase your search score. We also look at your website through the lens of our institutional knowledge and best practices of international sales, providing recommendations like I just highlighted in the previous two slides, specific to your website. In addition to that, we deliver the report to you, reading through it and the recommendations, making sure you understand what is important and is not important to the bottom line of you showing up first in search and making that sale, because that's where our win is when you succeed. That's when we can write up a success story and say, our clients have succeeded. We have done our jobs. In addition to the report, we also provide service provider referrals. So you may have heard Coupang mentioned as a strategic partner, IBT Online also mentioned as a strategic partner. IBT Online is also listed on our e-commerce business service provider directory. And this is our referral resource for businesses doing this service, or anyone really looking for help with digital marketing, translation, cybersecurity, cyber forensics, logistics assistance, legal translations for disclaimers, quite a few other services out there, to include marketplaces like Coupang. But unfortunately, they aren't on our e-commerce BSP directory yet. Hint, hint. The service takes up to 14 days, so 2 weeks essentially to deliver to you. And for the majority of you, it will be only $100 for this WGR, unless you are very large and we're talking like REI or 3M manufacturing, in which case it would be $400 for you. And then after the report, we don't just leave you alone to your own devices. We actually have our trade specialists like Rich Swanson and others following up with you to make sure you don't need any other resources, perhaps the STEP grant, service provider referrals, or any other market intelligence information that you may need to help you on your way to increase your exports. So what are some frequently asked questions about this WGR that are often burning in the minds of people when I present about this? Well, the first one is, are you going to fix our website? No, 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 no. Just like when you go to the mechanic and plug in your car to that little diagnostic tool and it tells you what's wrong with it, that's what this WGR service does. It tells you what's wrong with your website. From there, we need to help you with finding a service provider, a digital marketer, a web developer of some sort who can fix the metadata issues, fix the canonical tag issues, the 404 errors, who can add a made in the USA to the header of your website, and service providers who can provide you translated blog content, perhaps. So that's the next steps after the WGR. We also get asked, fortunately not so much anymore, but can we help you with keywords? I wish I could say yes, but no. Why? It takes a long time. It varies from client to client, but I can help point you in the right direction to making better decisions and understanding how keywords actually work for search, which after our delivery, hopefully makes a little bit more sense in what you should be looking at here. And it's not so much a purchasing of keywords, but rather how much of your website you're investing in. Sort of like gardening. I don't know if any of you have gardens in your homes. I have a very small raised bed in the back of my house here. And, you know, the dirt is wonderful, but it doesn't stay the same year after year. Every year I have to add manure to it or potting soil or something. Not for the fact that it keeps going down, but the plants that grow out of it take nutrients. And so you have to replenish those nutrients. Same thing with content on your website. You have to constantly, like a garden, replenish the keyword and backlink nutrients on your website through adding more content, which is the main recommendation of the WGR. A little sneak peek there. Can I add backlinks to my website? Yes, yes, please do. All day long, as many as you can within reason. Do not do what I see a lot of the time and take a metaphorical pot of spaghetti and throw it at the wall when it comes to backlinks, URLs, just throwing everything on there. Search bots know you're doing that, and no, that's not a good tactic, and will count you down in search score when you do that. There's a much more methodical and thought out approach to doing that, which, oh shoot, I'll just go ahead and give this recommendation away for free. You don't even need the WGR. The recommendation is add 5 to 10 links to your website each month over the next year. That's the big secret. Not 100, not 1,000, not 100,000, 5 to 10 consistently each month. Now, good URLs too, not too shady ones. No, no, no. Chamber of Commerce, things related to your industry, distributors, partners, local universities, chambers of commerce, you name it. You want to cultivate those, again, like a garden. Your website, again, should be considered like a garden and not something static, something that needs constant input for a good crop, harvest, output. Can we get a .gov backlink to our website? Well, yes, you can, as a matter of fact, but we don't just give them away. There is a Fuse program service where you can pay for one. However, with recent government downsizing, we don't have enough people, I think, to facilitate this, but it's worth checking into to see who's still doing it, still around. Outside of that, another way to get a good .gov backlink to your website is to do the WGR service. However, it doesn't just stop there. You'll actually improve your website. Your search score will go up and you will increase your sales. and then you'll tell us about that success, and we'll post your success about how you took our WGR service and it increased your sales and you're just now doing fantastic. We'll put that on trade.gov with a backlink pointing back to your website. That'll actually boost your search score oh so much, just a tiny little boost. But it's still better than a .com or a .edu because it's a .gov backlink. What other resources are out there to help me pay for my website? Well, there's the STEP grant, obviously. I understand for California, it's a little bit more restrictive, but nationwide, most states have quite wide access to the STEP grant. There's also other alternative funding plans through the SBA that's worth asking your local trade specialist or Chamber of Commerce about to see what else is out there. And then there's also funding here through businesses like Intuit, TurboTax. Being as you do your taxes with the software, they actually offer loans. So there's lots of resources out there. Just reach out to a trade specialist, Chamber of Commerce, LA EDO here, and ask about other resources that might be available out there for you, and we'll be happy to find them out for you. And then strategic partner resources that we can refer you to. We have some great resources on trade.gov to help you learn more about our former and current strategic partners like FedEx, IBT Online, and former partner Amazon. So what are some resources to help you get started today on building out your website, improving it, just doing something? What are some takeaways, some actionable things? Well, this right here, the e-commerce frontline library, is a great resource to look at for two reasons. One, it is built intentionally as an example of what search engine optimization and search engine optimized content should look like. And two, it's written on topics you'll be interested in, such as understanding e-commerce marketplaces or understanding international SEO or general data protection, GDPR, regulation updates. Things that you as businesses would want to know about are posted on here, but each one of these articles, when you look at them, look at the structure, the headings tags, the paragraphs, the hyperlinked keywords in there. We explain it more in detail during the WGR service delivery, but that is essentially how your web page content that you are going to be adding each month should look like. How do I know that looks good? What leg do I have to stand on to say that's the way? Well, I'm happy to brag that my organic search for this content is, I want to say 87%, which is pretty darn good. Now, that's on 1.5 million hits on content that I only promote during the WGR service and during webinars like this. So the rest of that is all search engine optimization power there. The structure is appealing to the bots. They can read it, they can easily index it, and everything's highlighted the way they like to see it. And so you'll want to try to copy that. And if you need help being explained what we're actually looking at, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to walk you through that at any time. Another resource that we have here is the Grow Your Export series with ITA and IBT Online. So as Richard mentioned at the beginning of this, Coupang is a strategic partner. I believe Richard is managing that partnership. IBT Online is a strategic partnership that I manage. So I work with IBT Online to produce these series of exporting webinars and live streams on topics from exporting to Mexico to how to prepare for a trade show. And so these are all of last year's webinars and live streams recorded. We're working on getting this year's up and running. Again, with the employment issues, we're running into some speed bumps, but we will get there eventually and have some fresh content for this year up there for you shortly. And next slide, e-commerce market research. So this is something we're happy to help you with. at our USIACs, our CS field offices. Richard and his colleagues can help you with that, finding out how to do business in a specific country. But if you want to do it yourself, which I tend to do, to like to do a little bit of research myself before asking questions, this is a great place to begin. And what this is our e-commerce resource guide that takes the e-commerce sections out of the country commercial guides that CS publishes and aggregates them in one convenient location. And for those of you that haven't read a country commercial guide, if you print one out, it's about a phone book in thickness. And so there's a lot of content there. And so it's actually very helpful that we take the e-commerce section out of that phone book and place it somewhere where you can access it very easily and for all the markets. So don't hesitate to go there and start looking up how e-commerce is done in those markets and look for any insights. And for any answers that or any questions you don't get answered, feel free to reach out to us to find out more and see what answers we can provide you. Now, I mentioned the e-commerce business service provider directory. What is that? Well, this is the follow-on resource to the website globalization review gap analysis, the WGR SEO report that we do. And we use this to refer our clients to the list of service providers that are on here. We have 8 different categories, from digital marketing to cybersecurity to back-end technology to marketplaces. And during each WGR gap analysis delivery, we obviously, through the course of the conversation, come to understand that the client needs metadata issues fixed, needs content created, and we also understand whether or not they have this help on hand in-house, or if they need to find a service provider. And from that point, then make the recommendations to these lists of service providers. We don't give direct references, but rather 3 to 5 service provider references based on keywords, such as the client's website is based in WordPress. We look for service providers that call out that they work on WordPress and try to make those connections with the clients. If you are a service provider and would like to list on this e-commerce business service provider directory, feel free to go to the website here, trade.gov/e-commerce BSP directory, and click right here on service providers apply here to list. You enter in your basic information there, it goes directly to me, and then I reach out directly to you to set up an initial screening call. After that, a very affordable payment of $150 to $180 gets you a .gov backlink here on the e-commerce BSP directory and references to clients who are exporting and looking for your services. Now, as I wrap up here, I'll go ahead and repeat and reinforce our exporter services that we have as the U.S. commercial service. These are services that can be initiated through Richard and our other colleagues there in the local CS office. But again, we have the Gold Key matchmaking appointment service where you fly in country. Going back to the earlier slides talking about B2B customs overseas, that would be particularly helpful for Japan and South Korea, for example, doing a Gold Key there. International partner search, very similar to a Gold Key. However, there's no flight involved. So we just give you a list of interested parties that have been screened through our overseas embassies, on down through initial market checks to see if there is country potential, international company profile, due diligence reports, and even, and this is something that gets overlooked that I want to highlight now, trade show help. So if you're going to a trade show, you're going to go to Consumer Electronics, ProMedica, Natural Products Expo, West or East, reach out to us. We're there at those trade shows. If we're not already there, put it on our radar so we can then petition to go to that and support you and help you find foreign interested buyers from those trade shows. So it's a very often underutilized aspect of our organization. And then lastly, we also have our global industry teams. So if you would like some more focused information and are perhaps you're in the healthcare industry or design and construction, do a lot of architectural work, these might be some teams you want to get connected with on our end. With that, that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I'd like to go ahead and open it up to any Q&A out there.
Great, James. Awesome. Let's see what we got here. Kesha Mills, do you want to come online? And you've got a question. And then Sandra, did we let back in Gregory Woods? Justin Wilcox asked.
Okay, thank you. I'm working with Walmart Marketplace, and I'm also working with USC to get my chocolates in the bookstore. But I'm also working with Lawa at AMAC to get my chocolates into duty free and the gift shops. So that sounds like to me that that's e-commerce. Is that
It can't.
also e-commerce? Is that
It
international?
Well, if for the duty-free shops, perhaps, depends upon if that duty-free shop is focused on overseas consumers.
Mhm.
Are those distributors, as I would call them, refer to them, are they promoting your products on their website?
Yes.
Excellent. So that is e-commerce. So you want to make sure that you're providing them as your distributors. I'm sorry, can you please mute something? I'm getting a bad echo. You want to provide them with very robust marketing on your products that they're selling. And what you want to keep in mind is keywords on this. You want to focus on things like what is it that's being sold, not so much we are the best or have been in business for 100 years, for the fact that nobody is Googling that. And that's what you want in those keywords and the marketing that you're providing to your distributors is something that can be searched up online, because presumably the distributor's website is higher ranking in search than yours because they're more well established, they've got bigger links, maybe their website's been around longer. So that's how you want to handle that, is definitely treat it as a resource that will require a lot of your marketing to really work for you.
So what about if I work for Hudson Group as well?
I don't understand.
Hudson, the one that does all the stadiums and all the things throughout the world. Hudson Company.
Mm-hmm.
So
You work
what if
for
I
them or
go,
work with them?
yes, what if I work going underneath them and working with them to put my chocolates in different places throughout the country? Is that
Yeah.
also import export as well?
If it's in
Because
the
Hudson's
US,
is
no.
national and international.
Yeah, it
Only,
is. I mean, it's like
okay.
James, it's like sometimes, we've had companies over the years that actually place products in our US embassies and consulates. And that is a form of global trade. A lot of US companies do transshipments. Some of the biggest exports in the world, are from the big companies like Intel and General Motors. They're shipping company to company within the company. So
Mm.
maybe the pricing, the shipping's a little different. But at the same time, it's an export. So yes, Keisha, I think that is a good channel if you have it. I think James and I are looking out at everything outside of that in terms of maybe a more B2C approach, business to consumer, maybe even business to business, and helping you engage in those outer markets that maybe could be lucrative and could be very fast growing at some point down the road.
Could
So
be could be working on Shopify, because Shopify is domestic and international. Could that
yeah,
also be an avenue?
yeah. I
Well,
mean, you heard Mark Matsumoto, James. You probably didn't hear this, but Mark mentioned something on Shopify and some of the other portals. Absolutely. Go ahead, James.
I was going to say, if you're mentioning Shopify, that's likely where your website is based off of.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So that would be, we're now discussing your sales channel ratio here, whether or not you want to invest a lot of effort in your website / Shopify or your distributors and that marketing material going to within company sales. So again, this is part of that step of deciding how you want that to work. Now, what the answer is, that depends upon your website analytics and kind of the sales you're tracking. How hot is your website? And furthermore, how hot do you want your website to be? Like, are you not getting enough traffic? Should there be more? Are people buying your products generally off of websites? And so, that indicates a need to increase the sales through the website. So there's a lot to peel apart here that I think you probably would want to reach out, and we could have a bit of a longer discussion on this, because you don't necessarily have a very straightforward yes or no. And I think that's going to be regardless. It just really depends on what you want, and also kind of the feedback of how it's currently working for you.
Great. We had a
Okay,
question.
thank you.
Thanks, Kesha. Great job. We had getting some good plugs here, James, in the chat box if you want to check them out. Terrific program, great information. You guys are the gurus. Lalaine Lau had a question. How are medical devices and health mobility aids doing for international e-commerce?
They're doing great. It just depends upon the market that you want to sell into, and again, the channels you're looking to leverage. If it's a product, again, let me explain. If it's a product that can be bought on Amazon, i.e. it's medical but consumer-ish, I'm talking like a boot, for example, that's one discussion. However, if it's something special, like elevator lift, we're talking mobility, healthcare mobility, and it's something more like that, that might be a different discussion altogether. So it just depends on the product. But in all, healthcare products, they're selling through e-commerce. That's not an issue or a question. The issue or question is, how do I sell my products better through e-commerce? That should be the question there.
Yeah. An additional question was, we talked about backlinks. I think you made an awesome point, because I'm a fan of Fuse. We have had some changes. We had it on buyusa.gov, and now we switched over to trade.gov, and not all the overseas posts have been able to make that transition, but slowly but surely, a lot of them have, and it's still a viable service. You also mentioned the business service provider. We're big into that too, because I think, for some brands and some products, they like to be regionally focused. So if you want to be a business service provider in the SoCal, Southern California region, reach out to us. But I think, James, your situation with e-commerce platforms and BSPs is an awesome option. It has been for the last 6, 7, 8 years almost now. So that's great. This last question is it okay with regards to backlinks to just add related backlinks to your website, or does the organization have to be contacted to place the link? I guess the organization is you and me.
Yes. So I get the question here. You can just add backlinks to your website. That's fine. But that's where we get into the discussion of backlink value. So anybody can add a URL to the website. You can add trade.gov to your website. Anybody can do that, but it's not worth that much until trade.gov points to you and has your URL on their website. That boosts your score more. Now, the better between the two of them is when you're pointing at trade.gov and trade.gov is pointing at you. To search bots, that shows that you know each other. That's a full backlink. So to answer your question again, no, you don't have to ask, but if you just go adding URLs, you only get so much. When you reach out to the other person and say, hey, I'm linking to your content, you should link to my content as content for you, that cultivates a better backlink there because they're, again, both pointing at you.
I think that's a great way to sum it up, James. I like the whole connection.
I have a question for James. James, you said you do food manufacturing, you do food products. Can you tell me what type of food products you represent?
I don't Did I say I
We
represent food
don't,
products?
well, you had mentioned National
Did
Products
you say
Expo, and I
food?
think Kisha,
Oh,
that
okay,
There we
we
go.
don't represent food companies per se, food products,
okay,
but since you're in the confectionery business, it seems,
yeah. I
you
have a barbecue sauce, a mouthwash, and chocolates and wine.
yeah, those are great. The consumer product mix here, especially for, e-commerce, is awesome. At the Natural Products Expo, there were a lot of hybrid marketing of natural products, which natural mouthwash, natural confectionery, natural food and beverage was excellent. So it's just a growing segment of the market. So I would say, let us know to all of you out there, let us know, contact myself or James or your local Chamber of Commerce here, the LA Chamber, Maurice or Simona, and let them know which products you really need to boost and push out there. And we've got some sort of viable service or program that I think we can plug you guys into. So let me just say thanks, James, again. Just fantastic. You're getting really good marks. Both you and Mark Matsumoto nailed it today. And I just want to thank you, and everybody, let's give them a virtual clap. Or if anything you want to follow up, feel free to do so. But what we'll do now is we'll have Maurice come back online and sort of bring us home, kind of give us a status update, let us know what we look forward to in segment number 4 and what the next steps are. And remember, if you are ready to export, James mentioned that there are resources out there to offset those costs of those small user fee services. Tap into those resources. STEP grant, state trade expansion program. Tap into RETAP. RETAP has funding sources to offset your services. If you want to do a contact service, you want to do a background check, we can see about eligibility and offsetting that. Maurice, back over to you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, James. So I guess we're up for April 2nd next week. Find and enter best exporter markets. This should be great. Maurice, do you want to say a few words about this?
I was trying, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, loud and clear.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to, I guess James already left. My understanding is to take advantage of the website globalization review that we pay for. You already have to be exporting. Is that correct? You can't be a new export company and have their website looked at by you?
I don't know, James, what do you think? I'm kind of a fan of Born Global. I think everything today, if you've got a good product and a good idea and it's scalable, why not work on your website? If you have an website already and, I don't know, James, what do you think?
I agree with you right there, Richard. Born global, let's go global. If it's a brand new website and it's obvious you're struggling, you might not get much help out of the WGR. But if it's a brand new website and you have a good, clear path and ahead of you and resources and are motivated, most of all, to work on this and get somewhere with your website, then by all means, we can definitely get some good insights, especially if it's a new website for immediate upgrades to kind of take you to that next level. So you can definitely get closer to that ROI rather than further away from it.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Oh, okay, because I asked a question earlier, I don't think it was addressed for James. I mentioned that all of the services that Richard and James mentioned from Commerce Department that have fees associated with it, whether it's website globalization review or international partner search or gold fee or whatever, we cover. We pay those fees if you meet our eligibility requirements. Now, James, I think I saw somewhere where you said in addition to our eligibility requirements, which include new to export, that you don't do a globalization review for new to export. Is that correct? You have to be already exporting?
Well, so this is our organization kind of benchmark. It depends on the office. So I'm a national office, and as an organization, we're focused on exporters. Now, individual offices take it upon themselves, like Richard's office there, to focus on the new to export. And so that doesn't mean that they're excluded. That just means that our initial focus is the export ready, with other offices electing to get the new to export up into that next area. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
I'm trying to pin down to your specific service. This is a
Yeah,
new to export initiative. Because more and more organizations in trade assistance are recognizing that new to export represented a huge potential for increasing the export base if we could only help them.
Yeah.
One of the things they need helping with, obviously, is a website that functions, just as you pointed out. But most of our programs that we're paying for from Commerce Department will be used by new to export. That's the nature of our grant. So I was specifically asking you whether you're making a waiver to do this, your service for new to export, or whether you exclude new to export for your particular service. Just want to clarify that.
I would say too, James, that, look, the bottom line is do you got a product or do you have a service that is at least 51% US content and labor? That's what we're looking for. We want the benefit, the majority of the benefit, to be towards US content and labor. I mean, that's logical, right? So as long as they have that eligibility, I think we can totally take a look at a company. I mean, there's manufacturers here, right here in Southern California, never exported before, 250 employees, totally assemble it, 75% US content and labor. I would say I would work with those companies in a heartbeat to get them to do a WGR immediately. Then I would do an initial market check after I've done a complete analysis of the top 10 markets for their product in the world. And I would work with that company all day long. So if you've got a company that is 51% and you believe that you've got a good exportable product or service, I would say we'd be open to looking at that company.
I understand we being the Commerce Department are specifically asking James about his particular service, whether it's open to new exporters under this grant program.
It works on everybody. It can work on your website. It can work on a new exporter, existing exporter. I work off the discretion of the local office. So if Richard wants to work with new to exports, I work with new to exports.
Okay.
If Nebraska doesn't, I don't.
All right, that's the answer I was looking for, because there was a little confusion earlier about that. Yeah, that was a great presentation. A number of our applicants or registrants, in some cases, don't have a website yet. That doesn't help us. That's a fundamental. Even though we didn't specify that as a requirement, I'm saying you got to have a website if you're going to get into international trade. Even if it's a lousy one, it can be improved and we'll help you improve it. But you got to have something there.
Yes, exactly. You got to have that virtual storefront that can be accessed internationally.
So
an Amazon storefront only goes so far. You want to actually have that full URL for your brand.
So just to kind of recap again, what the RETAP program is primarily for new to export and for new to market. The distinction being new to export hasn't yet exported at all, or only maybe occasionally if something came over their website, e-commerce, and they happen to fill it on occasion. That's not really active exporting, so we call them new to export still, even if it's occasional. And those that are exporting already to one or two countries with potential to expand to other countries, that's our target audience. The new to export and the new to market. We do have eligibility requirements that Richard mentioned. Obviously, we want you to be based in California because it's a California grant. And we want you to be making a made in USA product, namely 51% US. And we want you to be registered with the state of California. That suggests that there's some, that you're legitimately recognized by the state, and that you are new to export or new to market. So those are the primary criteria. Now, as we look at companies that apply through the registration system that Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce has set up on our web landing page for RETAP, a number of registrants don't fall into either of those categories. A number of them are organizations. Now that's fine, like WIT or Women in International Trade or Women's Business or PACE or economic development organizations or business assistance organizations that do have an interest in exporting. We welcome you aboard, and you're entitled to tune into all of the workshops that we have, all 8 of them free. We encourage that learning process for everybody that registers. But we don't allow everybody that registers to gain access to programs that we pay fees for. The STEP grants were mentioned as one traditional way of supporting export development costs of companies. That has certain limitations in terms of how much over a given year. We don't put a limit. We go by what you need. And if our assessment, based on information you provide us beyond registration, let me clarify that. What we want you to do besides registering is also to complete the needs form and the export readiness assessment. Both of those, I think I've provided guidance for. The export readiness assessment we demonstrated last week. Just go in online, answer the 23 questions, press submit. You get an immediate report, maybe a 10-page report on the implications of how you answered those questions in terms of whether that was a strong or a weak answer from an export perspective. There's an option to copy that to me, and I want you to exercise that option so that I see the same report that you do. That export readiness assessment, that gives me a benchmark, and I share that with Simona, a benchmark as to where you are and where we can start working with you. The other form that we need, and it's also on there, but I may be sending you that directly because when you fill it out, the form retains its structure instead of coming back as an Excel sheet, is what we call the export needs form. That identifies 32 or 33 potential needs that any company would likely have as they start an export process or in the course of exporting. So there are needs at the pre-export stage. I need money. I need this or I need that. What you do is you let me know by answering the question, you need this right away, you need it within 6 months, or you already have it, met that need. And that gives us already, when we get back to you, okay, we've determined your eligibility. You have an exportable product. You meet all our requirements. And now we see what your needs are. And if your needs fall into the new to export, I will deal with you, work with you to get you ready, prepared for what we call the export 101 level. And if your needs are such that you're obviously looking for new markets, then we turn you over to Simona Rasek as an export 201 level client. So I deal with the 101s, Simona deals with the 201s. All of the eligible companies that fall in either category, we want to fill out another form called a participation agreement. And that form is on the website. It's on the landing page. There's a form you can fill out for that participation agreement. There's also a participation agreement that the Commerce Department has, their own participation agreement, separate from ours. Probably has similar information, but
yeah.
Sorry, we had to have one for us because we have to account to the state, and the UCX have to account to the federal. So once we have all this information in place, I can begin working with the companies that we judge to be new to export. And that's mostly advice, guidance, what you need to do next to get you ready to initiate actual exports and move over to Simone. So those are the things that we will be following up with. In the meantime, we encourage you to continue tuning into these workshops. The next one, and number 4, is finding and entering best export markets. Obviously, at some point, whether you are new to market or whether you're new to export and get to the point where you're ready to look for markets, you need to know, well, it's a big world out there. Should I just open it up to everybody with e-commerce? Or should I focus on markets that may make the most sense for me? In some cases, it's not always what is the highest potential market for me, what is the best, most promising market for me in terms of sales value. It might be what might be a more comfortable market for me, a high comfort market. The difference, let's say, being if I'm from Guatemala, which is not a high potential market, but I know everything there is to know about Guatemala because that's where I came from and I have connections there and whatever. That's a high comfort market, and we may want to suggest you start there. Or we use our analytics with Dr. Serena Jackson and other tools to say, if you make this product, you really ought to be looking at Korea, Japan, Mexico, Canada, or whatever, based on findings. So once we help you identify the target markets, then you need a market entry strategy. So next week, that's what we're going to be talking about. Very important for everybody to know how to identify promising markets, and once identified, what do I need to do in strategy and entry planning to distribute, promote, price my product in that market, and adapt to whatever cultures and regulatory conditions apply. So we encourage you to keep tuning in to the workshops. When workshops are over and you're in our hands with value-added one-on-one assistance, either me or Simona, to get you into those markets, I want to also point out that there's a third track to this program. We call it career development. And what it is, it provides training to improve your prospects as an employee or worker in certain aspects of international trade. One of them is to prepare you to become a certified global business professional, CGBP. If you're familiar with accounting, you know that there's a credential called a CPA, Certified Public Accountant. And if you're applying for a job, an accounting job, and you have a CPA and the other person has a degree in accounting, and I'm the employer and looking at both of you, my inclination is to go with the credential holder, the CPA for this accounting job. And similarly, if you're looking for a job in international trade, exporting in particular, but not necessarily just exporting, because there are 4 domains covered. And you're sitting there and the other guy is an international business degree person. I, as an employer, am more likely to say, I want the CGBP to come in because they can hit the job running rather than learning on the job. Now, how do you become a CGBP? You have to take an exam, a national exam. And that exam is pretty tough. And what we're offering for free, which normally costs, when you add it all up, $1,000 for the training, a 2-day boot camp. It will be held in May. We have a date. I don't have it off the top of my head. It will be held at Loyola Marymount University, a 2-day boot camp to train you on how to prepare for that exam and to become a certified global business professional and give you an edge up in employment in this area. So we will be going out at some point, not yet, with promotion to see who wants to apply for free CGBP training. The 2 other areas of training we're providing, dates not yet set, but probably in May. One is training to become a freight forwarder, or if you are already in freight forwarding, that training can help make you a better freight forwarder. Freight forwarding is the backbone of a lot of international trade. At some point, your client is going to come to you as a freight forwarder to figure out how to quote prices, how to calculate transportation costs, how to fill out documents, what Incoterms are, and how to book and track the cargo. So freight forwarders are fundamental to the process of international trade, and we think it's a good area of employment. The other is training is to become an export management company. An EMC is a middleman. Now, we have so many new to export companies in the United States because they don't know what they're doing. They're afraid of getting into this. They would like to be able to sell overseas, but they don't know how. And so they don't do anything. But the alternative is not to do nothing, but to turn to a fellow whose face is now being shown there, Carlos Sol, who is an export management company. And Carlos is going to give a half-day workshop on how to become an export management company. So I hope those of you out there will wait for our promotions on the career development path. There will be an opportunity to register for them on the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce website. So I think that's all I wanted to say. I want to emphasize again that you need to fill out a participation agreement to be part of our program. If there are any other questions, we still have a few minutes left to deal with any questions that anybody still has.
I wanted to ask you a question. Am I able to add another one of my businesses onto what I listed on here at first? Because I have Caviar Blue, the wine, but I think I would like to add my chocolates on there as well, because I'm on LinkedIn and I get a lot of people that solicit my business. And I just finished Cornell University.
Are you one company or are you 2 companies?
I'm really 4. I just listed one.
You have each, so the 4 has different names of the
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah, I mean, you can register in however many companies that has a specific product for export.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
How do I go about in doing that?
You go to the registration form on the LAC website. You register for the RETAP program with each new company's name. You already
Okay.
registered for one of them.
Yes.
Well, so do it 3 more times. I think that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, do it 3 more times, one for each company.
Okay, thank you.
Carlos, you're shaking your head. Did you want to say something? Carlos?
So, how are you, Maurice? Yeah, no, I said, why repeating, 4 companies when you're gonna learn basically the same thing, but that's fine. I mean, if you wanna do it 4 times, it's up to you.
Yeah, okay.
I was just wondering if I could add a name onto another business name onto the application that I already submitted.
If she wants to revise the name,
Just email.
do what?
Email.
Email it to Sandra?
Simone.
Huh?
Simone.
Oh, email what you want to do to Simona and to me. I think you have our email addresses.
Yes, I do. I'll do it today. Thank you.
And so let us know what you wish to do that you haven't done yet. Any other questions? Well, with that, it's exactly 12:30. We ended on time, and we'll see you next week, next Wednesday, same time, on this topic of finding and entering best markets. Thank you very much for attending, and see you next week.
Thank you, Maurice.